I got something to say.
SAF Moe, your prison lawyer. SAF Moe, your prison lawyer. I got something to say. I got something to say. SAF Moe, your prison lawyer. PSA, I got something to say. I got something to say. This is a disclosure. The views expressed by the host of I Got Something to Say on social, criminal, and justice do not necessarily reflect those views of our guests. With that said, my personal view on the criminal injustice. This is my social commentary on the criminal injustice system, the state of Minnesota, Minneapolis, and St. Paul, and their surrounding areas. You feel me?
Daunte Demetrius Wright. I will continue to fight in your name until driving while black is no longer a death sentence. I'm proud to be your mom, and I love you, Daunte.
I got something to say. Welcome to
IGSTS. What's that, Ron B?
I got something to say.
We're in the GP. What's that, Ron B?
Real pit.
With my man.
Be in the middle.
We're here, y'all. Episode 16. Man, we got a lot of shit to go over, Ron B. Shit's crazy, man. Shit's crazy, man.
It's on the screen. Y'all see it. It's on the screen. Y'all see it.
Yeah,
it's on the screen. Y'all see it.
Yeah. This shit's crazy, man. This
it's on the
crazy.
Screen. Y'all see it.
Man, what I like to do is just give a shout out to everybody who's been out there supporting us. You know, motherfucker ride or dies. You know, no matter what the conversation is, what we trying to do is bring a counter conversation to what's been going on, right? You know what I'm saying? We appreciate all the love out in the streets, out in the streets. We appreciate that love, man.
I just can't understand. I don't want to talk about nothing else. I don't want to talk about nothing else.
We gonna be back.
But these 2 years.
We gonna be back. We're gonna be back with that right now. But we gotta give these fans some love and show them some support so we can.
I love the fans. I love the fans. I love the fans. I love the fans to death.
Yep.
I love y'all support. I love y'all subscribing, liking, following, and sharing. I love it. But this 2 year sentence is really getting to me.
Got something about. But I'm about to show y'all. I'm about to show y'all. Since we're going to go there, I'm about to break down how this went on. Wasn't an accident at all. In fact, they intended to kill him.
It was a setup.
That was I don't know nothing about the family. I haven't talked to the family. I haven't talked to the police. I'm SAF Moe, your prison lawyer. I'm just gonna use case law to show you how this could never have been an accident.
And then we're gonna show you in the video footage how they stopped handcuffing the man that was submitting and was ready to go into handcuffs. You'll see an officer's hand go on another officer's shoulder or elbow and be like, hold up. And then the struggle began.
Come on, man. What's really going on, man? What's really going on? I'm going on the record and saying this was a setup. They intended to do what they did and they got off. Ron B, we are
the voice of the voices, the only voice.
And we'll be right back.
Look, right here. It's gonna come up right now. He handcuffed him, and then the officer comes up and say, "Hold."
You
see that?
Because I keep telling you that. All right, that's all they feel. All they doing. Let's go. We're back. So I got something to say. I'm SAF Moe, your prison lawyer. I'm the one that says I believe this whole thing was definitely set up, and I'm gonna explain to you why. Again, for all those who have tuned in, the opinions of the host do not reflect those opinions of our guests. Not necessarily. But with that said, my opinion on Minneapolis criminal justice system, take that. I'll be right back.
welcome back. I'm SAF Moe, your prison lawyer. And I told you I was going to break it down based on case law. What police officers learn, they get trained in as police officers to do certain things. And I just want to break this down real quick. There's a couple of different cases that allow police officers to use deadly force. The first case is what is it? It's Tennessee versus Garner. Tennessee versus Garner. That's the first case. That case limited their power because prior to that they had given the police officers it was a flea doctrine that they were utilizing. So if your police officer began to arrest you and you started to run, he had the right to use by all means necessary stop you from running. By all means necessary stop you from running. So he was able to use deadly force. He started to put you in handcuffs. You take off running. If he couldn't apprehend you, he could shoot you. It was legal. This is in 1985. Tennessee comes out. Tennessee versus Garner. Let's find that case real quick. Tennessee versus Garner, 1985. What that did is it restricted the police power. The reason I'm bringing all this stuff up and making points about it because it's important, because the setup is these police officers are trained by trainers. Individuals come in, sometimes it's the DA. They come in and explain to them how to utilize the law when it comes to deadly force. So Tennessee versus Garner, what that did is a police officer could not shoot an individual because he ran, right? But it also expelled out what a seizure is. So if a police officer starts to arrest you and say you're under arrest, he has control over you, and if you run, he can shoot you, right? But it had an exception to it. It had to be an imminent bodily harm, an imminent threat posed, right? So that's what Garner said. That it has to be an imminent threat, and if it was an imminent threat, he had the right to shoot you. But also with this same seizure, if you start to whatever amount of force that you utilized against him, he had the right to utilize that force against you. So in order to apprehend you, right? So if you start to jiggle around, move around, he could put his back. He could use whatever force he was trained with to apprehend you. State said that. After that, we get the case, the phenomenal case, and this was Graham versus Garner. Graham v. Garner. When Graham v. Carter comes out, it said, if you watched 137 shots, it said that a police officer, his perception of the events. So he pulls up, he runs up on you, you tells you stop running, whatever, you're under arrest, whatever the situation is. You grab your cell phone, but at the time, Mr. Police Officer thought it was a gun. He shot you. You can't. His subjective thought had it didn't matter. If he thought that you had a pistol, he had the right to kill you. Okay. The reason I point those out, the reason I thought those were necessary is because it's going to build us right up to what happened to Daunte Wright. In his situation, when they first came in contact with him, he was compliant. He was putting his hands behind his back. But there's certain calls that police officers use, and many of us heard them. Oh, stop resisting. Fuck, I ain't resisting. What the fuck you mean? You know what I'm saying? So they were as you can see him pull him out the car, they're acting as if he's trying to run away, right? What you gotta understand was as a police officer pulling you out the car, you're gonna be scared. So in his mind, he might not have been running. He might not be thinking about running. But as he's complying. But as they keep saying these things to you, you might know in your mind this shit ain't right because I ain't running. That's like if you had no gun and the police officer said put down your gun, and you don't have a gun in your hand, automatically in your mind you know this shit ain't right. I got to get away. So whatever that police officer said to him prior to him jumping in that vehicle, he knew something wasn't right. So what did I tell you before? Tennessee v. Garner gave them the right under imminent danger to be able to kill you. I said Connor versus Graham then gave them the right under the perceived under their perception, the fool's perceptions, that they could do whatever they want to do as far as killing you. So in my mind, because how things transpired, they set him up because they knew once he got in that vehicle, it posed an imminent threat, and they had the right to shoot him. That's what they've been trained on. That's how they understand it. Prior to that, what happened? They could have been in the car because during that time we knew that George Floyd was going. We were going through the George Floyd situation, so they could have wanted retaliation because their buddy was getting charged. So there's a lot of doctrine to go into that. I'm not just spouting off my chops. Let's fast forward back. There was a case called Slaughterhouse a long time ago, around the time that they freed the slaves, when they created equal rights for slaves. The South filed a case called Slaughterhouse. What Slaughterhouse did was destabilize and weaken the equal protection. That's just a case of how when they think things are turning in their favor, when they're losing their power, they utilize the law. So let's fast forward. We know about Brown versus Board of Education. When Brown versus Board of Education was finalized, we had them kill Emmett Till. So every time this white power structure feels as though this racist ass white feel like they're losing power, they in turn either try to make the law work for them or push the law so and trying to get it back into their range, right? So all I can say now is that based on all that information, we fast forward to right now when we had the George Floyd case, where it was obvious that everything the police had worked for was going to go away from them, because on national TV you saw a police officer kill an individual, murder him. During that same time, then we have the Daunte Wright situation. The reason Daunte Wright is so the reason. Now my co-host is going to come on and try to explain maybe that Kim Potter did it on accident. But there's a couple of reasons why I feel like she did it on accident. And she should have got way more time. But again, this is just them pushing the political system, and it was a setup. He happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. When she held that gun for longer than 2, 3, 4, 5 seconds, it's long enough for you to rationalize in your mind what you have. He posed no imminent threat towards you, but yet still you had to make this rash decision where you did. It wasn't like he was shooting at you. He was not shooting a gun at him. So there's no reason for her to make that mistake. The other thing, and the same thing I'm going to tell everybody, if you're a fool for 26 fucking years, you're a professional fool. This lady was a police officer for 26 fucking years. The fuck she didn't know what the difference is between tasing a goddamn gun. Finally, I want to say this. When Daunte was on the ground dying, not one fucking police officer rendered aid to this man. You know, in the state of Minnesota, it is a crime, even if you kill somebody, not to render aid. It's an aggravating factor. He never called the police. He never called the ambulance. He never rendered aid to this victim. That's an additional charge on a homicide. None of them charged with it. None of them did it. You know what this bitch had the enough nerve to do? She said, "I'm going to jail for the rest of my life. Please call our union boss." This is a lady who didn't mean to kill him. Are you fucking kidding me? This is SAF Moe, your prison lawyer. I'll be right back.
Is also not a purpose that would justify incarceration in this case. Ms. Potter does not require rehabilitation to become a law-abiding citizen. Retribution, or serving time as a way for a convicted person to pay for the harm inflicted on a victim, is the sole purpose that applies in this case. And in this case, a young man was killed because Officer Potter was reckless. There rightfully should be some accountability. Sentencing guidelines are just that. They are guidelines that inform a judge regarding sentencing for various crimes. They are not set in stone. The court has the discretion to depart from guidelines depending on the particular facts of a case. A downward durational departure is justified if a crime is less onerous than typical. Put another way, if the conduct is significantly less serious than that typically involved in the commission of the crime, sentencing below the guidelines is justified. I find the facts and a downward departure from the guidelines. First, Officer Potter's conduct was significantly less serious than your typical manslaughter case. The misdemeanor predicate for the manslaughter count was reckless handling or use of a firearm. Here, everybody agrees, and the evidence is undisputed, that Officer Potter never intended to use her firearm. She mistakenly drew her firearm at all times, intending to use her taser. There were police officers and experts who testified that the use of her taser was reasonable and appropriate under the circumstances presented for officer safety reasons. The fact she never intended to draw her firearm makes this case less serious than other cases. Second, the scene was chaotic, tense, and rapidly evolving. Officer Potter was required to make a split-second judgment. That constitutes a mitigating circumstance. Finally, unlike other manslaughter 1 cases, Officer Potter's actions were not driven by personal animosity toward Daunte Wright. Instead, she was acting in the line of duty and effectuating a lawful arrest. This case is highly unusual. The other officer cases tried in this court are distinguishable. This is not a cop found guilty of murder for using his knee to pin down a person for 9.5 minutes as he gasped for air. This is not a cop found guilty of manslaughter for intentionally drawing his firearm and shooting across his partner and killing an unarmed woman who approached his squad. This is a cop who made a tragic mistake. She drew her firearm thinking it was a taser and ended up killing a young man. Ms. Potter, will you please rise? Given all these considerations and having carefully considered the comments of the family of both Daunte Wright and the comments of Kimberly Potter, as well as the arguments of counsel, it is the sentence and judgment of this court that you shall be committed to the custody of the Commissioner of Corrections for a period of 24 months. You shall serve 2/3 of that time, or 16 months in prison, and a third on supervised release, assuming no disciplinary offenses or conditional release violations.
I got something to say.
Welcome back to I Got Something to Say. I'm SAF Moe, the prison lawyer with my man.
Ron B in the middle.
We about to do this. I'm just back. I just hit y'all with what I felt like personally, Mr. Wright was involved in a setup. It was an assassination by the Minneapolis Police Force, the finest. Ron B in the middle.
I don't think that Kim Potter woke up this morning and said, I'm going to kill me a nigga today. I don't personally believe that. But I believe it was a mistake. I believe after I look at all the evidence, I've looked at it. I know there's a difference between a taser and a handgun. I get that. I get everything, what you're saying. I get it. However, I don't think that it was a plan. You don't know, and I don't know what I'll do in the heat of the moment. When you're in a situation, you make rash decisions and you grab the wrong things and you do the wrong things, you make the wrong decisions. I think she mistakenly grabbed her handgun thinking she was grabbing her taser. However, we have to pay for our mistakes that we make. If me or you made that same mistake, we're going to get more than 2 years in prison. And I think she should have got more than 2 years in prison.
If she made a mistake, then why is she...
She got to pay for it.
Yeah, but it was a mistake. If you
She's 20-something years on the force, trained and everything.
But
she got to pay for it.
But it's all it was neglect. You don't make it. It doesn't because what you missing when you say that, and I believe totally it's more egregious than that, and it was never a mistake. But if you look at it, if it's a mistake, because I don't like the NAACP, but I don't fault anybody. I don't fault anybody that just in for trying to help individuals and do their thing and everything like that. There's a case in the NAACP. NAACP has a case that they wrote a amicus brief on. A sheriff out of Texas suffocated a dude, choked him out, and killed him. So what they are trying to do is say that police officers are the last policymakers, meaning that they're immune to any prosecution, is what Texas is trying to do. So when you say it was a mistake, realistically, based on their immunity, they really don't have to answer for any crime. But when you say it was a mistake, it becomes a mistake like, oops, I just dropped the egg. That's what it is. That's why she only got 2 years. Because Negroes, yourself, all these other individuals keep saying it was a mistake. It could never be a mistake. It was malicious. And that's all. The reason that you and I, if we and I get in the car right now, and even if it's an accident, cause what they call a crime, and they try to prosecute us to the length of the law, because they'll say it was intentional. They say we meant to do it. They'll go back into your past and my past and say we have all the elements of criminality, all this other stuff. With her, when you fall into the mistake of saying that it was just a mistake, it alleviates her for any accountability, any responsibility for it. And she has to have some.
And that's what they need to rewrite in the police code of conduct. They need to rewrite that and say that if you make that mistake, then you got to be held accountable for that mistake.
It's too late for all that, though, right now.
No, it's too late for right now for Daunte Wright.
Right.
And Breonna Taylor.
Right. And this lady going to get off.
Castillo and all of them.
It's too late for them. Home, and she's going to be a hero. You saw those letters he wrote? He had in a box. These are, he's so happy. Everybody writing this offender letters. And they called her officer. They never called her offender. Mm-hmm. They have no problem calling us offenders. This offender. Because that's how they feel about what she's done. They're minimizing it. Everybody's minimizing it. And I don't believe it's minimized at all. I believe by the actions. She held that taser for long enough to realize that it was not a taser. It was a gun. Mm-hmm. And if she didn't realize it, was people around her could have stopped her from what she did.
Because she clearly yelled, taser, taser.
Yeah,
and somebody else should have noticed.
All around her.
Somebody should have noticed, hey,
it's
Kim,
a color
Kim,
difference.
you don't have a taser. You don't have a taser in your hand.
No, you hear one person say one thing.
Nobody
like
said
I keep
nothing.
telling you, nobody rendered aid. Nobody rendered aid. He sat there and died. Nobody rendered aid. So I go back to when they pulled him over. At some particular time, they knew who he was. And they might have known that he had an offense against a white female in the state of Minnesota.
You know what I think about right now?
That's
today?
what they might have said that in their mind.
You know what I think about right now today? There isn't a reason why they pulled him over.
Yeah,
it's because he had a incense, the little tree things. That
supposedly, that's a lie.
Hanging from his mirror.
That's a lie. We know it's a lie.
From his rearview mirror.
Yeah.
Hold on. I'm trying to make a point here. You know how many times I see people riding in my day-to-day drive to work, to and from work, with stuff on their mirror that don't get pulled over?
What's the point?
The point is, like,
because I told
this
you
is not a regular thing that y'all pull people over for, and y'all done killed this man for this shit.
I'm telling you, it was just like you say, it was not intentional. It was intentional with them pulling him over. They wanted any reason to pull him over because they wanted any reason to kill him. Because listen,
I get that
because
part.
when you say, because you got a long listen, all these people right around Minnesota with that same shit on their window didn't get pulled over all day. Why did he get pulled over?
I look at it every day. I look at it every day on my day-to-day drives every day. I drive to work every day and I come back from work every day and I see people with stuff hanging from their mirror and I see the police pass by me and them and I see I see everything. I'm like, damn, hold on. This man just got killed for this shit. And they still riding around like this?
But the thing about it is you saying, that's why I say, to me, it's easy for me to believe that it was a setup and it was an assassination. Because from my standpoint, is that they don't commonly pull people over. Why did you pull him over? If you're trying to arrest him, he's being compliant, why all of a sudden he's running away? Unless you're scaring the fuck out of him to the point where he thinks that his life's in danger and he has to break away. Because I would run. I would run.
That's where the racial profiling comes in.
That's beyond racial. It doesn't matter what it is. They pulled this dude over and stopped him for no apparent reason other than a fucking Christmas tree in his window and he's dead.
Do you remember back in the day when we was on the block? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
That certain things we couldn't do because we knew we was gonna get racial profile?
Yeah, but this is not the same. This ain't that. This is somebody who's in their vehicle doing whatever they're doing. Had a parody warrant out had maybe bond out for that crime they allegedly said he committed. Whatever the deal is, he had no they racial.
It started before the warrant because they didn't know he had a warrant until after they pulled him over.
Right. I'm just saying they knew who he was. But besides that, they knew who he was when they pulled that car over. They either were staking him out, looking at him for whatever reason. They knew who he was. Either when the stop had been made or during the stop, they knew who he was. So I'm just saying, like I said, like there's too much stuff going on. I feel as though it was a setup. I feel as though that she intentionally did it. I feel as though that her lawyer, the clown he is, did what he had to do. I'm not trying to say he's a clown in the sense that nothing other than I'm upset because the same type of when I was in the law library. Let me just back up for a second. When I was in prison, I was in the law library. Mm-hmm. The thing you go to the law library, you start reading case law. Mm-hmm. You start reading statutes. And all statutes you got when you talk about it, you can pay your fine or you can go to prison. Mm-hmm. Now, but they always have every statute, not every statute, but a lot of statutes have exceptions to it. Mm-hmm. Like you say, downward departure. She was eligible for a downward departure. They put in a downward departure.
I get that. I get that part because she didn't have a criminal history.
No, fuck that shit. I'm telling you, I had a downward. I put in
I received a downward departure before.
They didn't give me a downward departure for my crime, and I had really nothing in my background except for some DUIs that amounted to misdemeanors. No criminal history, none. We don't know what was in her criminal history because a lot of times histories get scrubbed because they're cops, or her 3 drinks a week after 3 drinks after she get off work and popping 2 Vicodin or Percocets is not recorded by them. So we don't know what's in Mrs. Offender Kim Potter's background. We don't know, but we know what's in Dante's because they're quick to vilify us. Quick. So when you say, but I'm just going to the point where, when I look at this situation, it all sums up to be something that was a setup, something that wasn't.
I agree with you. There's someone right,
and he knew it. he knew it.
But
he knew something wasn't right.
I do not think that she woke up this morning and said, I'm gonna kill Daunte Wright today.
But you believe that they think differently than you and I. Police officers.
I refuse to believe that.
Police officers think different. Do they think differently than you are?
But
do they think differently than you are?
They do. But what I do realize is that right here in this video, right here, that something became amiss. Like the officer had Daunte Wright cooperating. Putting his hands
compliant.
Yeah, he was compliant.
He was compliant.
He was putting his hands
following orders. Get out the car.
And then all of a sudden, one police officer comes up and put his hands on the elbow of the other police officer, and then the struggle begins. I don't know what was said. You can't hear what was said or anything like that, but something happened in this moment right here. Let me show you. Let me go back to it. Something happened in this moment. Right here. Something happened right here. Right there where the police officer put his hand on his shoulder.
Prior to that, the police officer is talking in his ear and saying something to him. He said something to him. He either told him, like I keep telling you, stop resisting. Because they say that a lot. When they want to beat your ass.
They do that, but he wasn't resisting
that's what I'm saying. But if you say that to me, immediately I know there's
something going on.
This motherfucker's about to beat my ass.
Yeah.
Put down the gun. What fucking gun? They about to shoot me.
Now you got the fear in your head.
You got the fear. You gonna run. You gonna run because you scared. I'm gonna run because I'm scared. Because you don't know what these. Because if I'm lying on you, run. Wait, put that knife down. You ain't got no knife. Like what's going on?
Why is he saying that?
Right.
Yeah. Why is he saying that? I ain't got no knife. My hands right here. I got my hands behind my back. Why you telling me stop resisting?
Yeah. You know you about to either get your ass kicked. Motherfuckers who been in the street know
now
this.
you afraid and you start resisting.
Right. Because you know something. You're trying to get to safety. Remember prior to him even getting arrested, he called his mom. His mom told him he was going to be all right. He was scared. Motherfucker was scared, man. Motherfuckers do dumb shit when they scared. So he might have just, boom, I'm gonna take off. They're gonna catch me. I'm about to run to my mom's house. I'm about to run where safety is. I'm about to run to somebody who's gonna listen to me. Somebody not trying to set me the fuck up and kill me. And I keep telling you, man, it's a setup. Only person to know that truth is those officers and that man. He dead though. He ain't gonna never be able to tell that tale. I'm telling you, they've done it to me. My situation, dealing with them, is they lied. They've lied. They've lied and taken up for each other. They've lied and taken up for each other. They've lied and taken up from each other.
You're right.
So to tell you right, I already know, man. These people, come on, man. I'm not blaming these officers. Ron B, SAF Moe, I'm not blaming these officers. I'm blaming these Negroes. These they should be. They got a bunch of deals. They got Amir, Locke on at their doorstep. They got
George Floyd.
They got all these.
Breonna Taylor.
All of them. These Negroes.
Castillo.
These Negroes. We know Malcolm X told us about the fox in the hen house. How you gonna let the fox run the hen house? But these Negroes so smart. Not only they gonna let the fox run the hen house, but they gonna negotiate with them. They gonna sit there and negotiate with these foxes, and the fox gonna tell you. And every time the fox kill a hen, because that's all we are. We they meals. Every time they kill a hen, and they say, "Oh, I was hungry. I eat. I'm a fox. I do it. But I won't do it again." The old battle wife syndrome. I'm not gonna do it again. I promise to you. We're gonna put together committees to make sure I don't do what I do, and they believe it, and they convince you that they ain't gonna do it.
That's what they try to do with that girl. What's her name? Nikita or whatever.
Nakima.
No,
Nakima. What's up, Nakima?
They try to.
I'm gonna play that video.
And then
too.
they play her.
I'm gonna play her video.
And then they play her.
I'm gonna play, but
and then they played
she
her.
Believed.
And then they played her.
They believed, but she.
And
believed.
then they played her.
They believed.
And then they played her.
Exactly. So what because you're negotiating with a fox. He's in his nature. The same way y'all believe these police officers. They put the uniform on. They put the uniform on. They have to do a job. Nobody's going to dispute that. I was talking to
You see how she snapped after Daunte Wright? She snapped on the police chief lady. She said, you want me to be a part of this, but y'all doing it again. It's the same old story. Y'all doing it again.
With that, I'm going to say how much of that they already knew what was going on. Again, I'm giving you the analogy. You're negotiating with a fox. They gonna continue because they need her. They need her. So they're gonna continue to placate her in order to keep the masses.
As a token?
No, she's not a token. She's very spoken. She's intelligent.
So what they need her for?
They need her to control the masses. Because the only person they have, as long as they got her, bring your enemies in close. The fox is smart. That fox is smart. She can bring her in close. Because as long as he keeps her on his side, now he can do whatever the fuck he want to do. Now she's responsible for it. At the end of the day, the fox not going to ruin his reputation. He's ruining hers. She can never come back into the community. She knows it. Because what he's about to do or what he has done. And you ain't got no control over it because he's a methodical liar. The same thing he says about you, I can't trust him because you're lying. No, you're the liar. It is what it is, man. Hey, okay. I got something to say. Ron, we are.
The voice of the voice is the only voice.
We'll be right back. And don't forget, we got a special guest today. My man, Justin Terrell from the Minnesota Justice Research Center. He about to kick it off strong, y'all.
You better believe it.
You better not. Go get your popcorn. Get your popcorn. He's going to talk about a lot of different things, but a lot of things dealing with felons and voting rights and things like that. But we'll be back. Thank y'all.
Before they entered the door. Yesterday you said that they were loudly announcing their presence and knocking at the door before. But that didn't happen. You saw it all in the video.
Right. So in the video, they open the door with the key and announce police search warrant before they enter the apartment.
That's not true. If you go back and watch the video, they do not say until they cross the threshold of the door. It's just not true.
I definitely encourage everyone to view the video and make that assessment for themselves.
Is it not true that officers are only to speak one at a time when they come in? In other words, is that police training 101 that only one officer speaks? In these circumstances, why were all of them screaming and shouting at once in ways that you could not determine what they were actually even saying?
So certainly when we're doing a more controlled action, like a felony stop, we clearly identify one person to be speaking. In this case, the officers were advancing into the apartment and also into separate rooms. And so you do have people giving commands, loud commands, and repeating police search warrant, police search warrant.
Chief, yesterday in your statement, you specifically articulated that he pointed the gun in the direction of the officers. You did not use that language just now. Can you point to specifically in the video where he points the gun at the officers?
Yeah, so if you look at that still image, even though you don't see all of the officers, the involved officer was just outside the frame in the direction that barrel is emerging from the blanket.
But it looked to me as if that gun in Mr. Lott's hand was pointed toward the floor.
And certainly when the county attorney's office reviews that case, they will be carefully examining all of those factors. And I'm absolutely positive they will take a look at that. Of course, we all know these events happen very rapidly. And as there's a gun emerging in your direction, you're forced to make a split-second decision about when it's a threat.
Chief Huffman, hold on. Yeah. Chief Huffman, no, do not. Okay, I'm not a threat. I don't have a gun. Okay? Don't treat me like I'm a threat. This is what I would call the anatomy of a cover-up. This is unacceptable. I'm sorry, it is. When I agreed to work with you on the work group, we talked about the importance of transparency and accountability. And here, what we are seeing is business as usual. And you know this, Amelia. You know this, Jacob. I don't know how you guys slept that night. I couldn't sleep at night. Tears from a mother's perspective, thinking about what happened. I saw the picture of Amir. He looks like a boy. My son is 17 years old. He has slept on his friends' couches for sleepovers. So we cannot sit here and whitewash this and pretend that it's okay. You knew that I was not going to stand for police violence and a push for accountability, yet you asked me to be a part of the work group. and I knew what I thought I was signed up for. This isn't what I signed up for. I understand if you're not comfortable having me continue to co-chair, that's your prerogative. I signed up to help bring recommendations because we're tired of being killed. We're tired of the cover-ups. We're tired of the excuses. And to hide behind the St. Paul Police Department, the deadliest police force in the state of Minnesota, is unacceptable. You all had no business agreeing to carry out a warrant, and now you're claiming that's part of their investigation. You don't know. Well, why the hell did you all sign up to do this in the first place? There was a homicide that happened at 1-something in the morning on Hennepin Avenue. Someone was killed, and then the person drove away in a black SUV. They're still at large in Minneapolis, potentially a threat to residents. But you all go do something for St. Paul Police, and now you're trying to hide behind that decision. It's not acceptable. We are ready for change. When the people voted to re-elect you, Jacob, they not only showed that they wanted to see a new leader, right? Not saying you're not the person who got reelected, you got reelected. But what they were expecting is a new beginning. That's why they gave you more power and authority. So that is what we want to see as the residents of Minneapolis. We don't want to see cover-ups. We don't want to see whitewashing. People are asking very simple questions that have still not been answered. Amelia, you're saying you want to be the chief? Then act like it. Demonstrate integrity. Don't cover up for what those cops did. If they knew that the kid had a gun as he started waking up, say, drop your weapon. They didn't do that. One cop opened fire and took the life of a child who was trying to go back into his blanket. Any mom can see what happened there. So I can't tolerate the whitewashing. I'm sorry, y'all. We can't do this. I know you have your narrative. I know you have your script. And no, you guys didn't personally go shoot somebody. But you do have the opportunity to make it right. To talk about the fact that you changed the no-knock warrant policy. Where's the evidence of that? That wasn't present on what happened to Amir Locke. So if I'm going to be the co-chair of this group, I'm expecting strong leadership, I'm expecting integrity, and I'm expecting accountability. Yes. You guys aren't going to waste my goddamn time. And I don't care if you guys had your security trying to stop me. I can be used to come speak the truth about what needs to happen, but when it's time to call out these inconsistencies, these inaccuracies, the lack of information, I got to sit in the back or even not even be invited. I'm not here for it. We fought too long, too hard. There's people in jail, including Cortez Rice, trying to get the court to show what's happening in the courtroom so people can see what's going on. People have put their lives on the line because we're ready for change. So we're expecting from this point forward for you guys to do something different. I'm not playing. We're not here for it. We're not here for it. I'm only committed to working on this work group if you all are committed to being honest and transparent and not covering up the bullshit. Thank you.
Why did you release pictures of his gun, but no pictures of a gun of the officer who killed him? Why have you not released that information? You know, this man did not shoot anyone. He did not discharge his weapon. Why did you release his gun? That was a disgusting vilification of this man. That is inexcusable. It is utterly disgusting that you would release a picture of his gun, even though he's never fired his weapon. And you know he didn't fire his weapon because you had both seen the video. This is the kind of lack of transparency that Nikita is exactly talking about. When you send out these sensationalistic pictures of his gun, a man who has never committed a crime, but you don't release the video, or rather the pictures of the officer's gun.
So, Ms. Gross, thank you for being here. And Ms. Levy-Armstrong, thank you for your strong words. You acknowledged and rightfully pointed out that at this moment in time, we need accountability. We need leadership.
3.
I got something to say.
Who I is, I'm everything that signified monkeys say I be, so they say. But I am a comet rider, planet hurdler, Milky Way maker. I am beyond I can't's theory of knowledge. I am a celestial transcendental time traveler who walk with wisdom and knowledge and evaded the inherent fallacies of religion, but found common ground and principles. I am the Alpha and Omega, and all times in between. I am the Father, the Son, and the other cat. You dig? I am in the midst of the burning bush and called out to Adam, Noah, Abraham, Moses, Marcus, Malcolm, Martin, Mandela. Here I am, the fourth man loose, walking in the midst of the fire, who made Nebuchadnezzar shout out, Nina, Moto, no Danny, Yago. I am the North Star, master builder, set the great pyramids underneath me. I am the low, moaning, strangle song from the bilious bills, sung by kidnapped African nationals. I am the revolt. I am the escape. I am the dive into the icy blue depth. I am the bones that litter the middle passes. I am what the white man strung up and hung out the slave. I am underfed and destitute. I am what the Negro forgot, so he shouted out, I am somebody. I am everything that nigga Stackley's not. The black power the 60s saw. I am the rhythm. And fofo time, laid over eighth and quarter notes, wrapped in blues bent soul cries. I am jazz, funk, on the one, soul and hip hop. I am the bass drum of the heart. I am the graceful H, played like Donny Hathaway, running warm and cool. At the same time, wild, through Coltrane veins, through Soul Train veins. I am backflips, no hands on messages, laid out in Mad Dog 2020 fields. I am the threat police officers perceive in the presence of unarmed black men. I am the roll call on black mothers for slaying children by white police officers' violence. I am incandescent with rage beyond the point of pleading. I am 2.2 million hostages struggling forward from government-owned property up to I am as much man as you think you are. I am compassion, I am love, I am peace. I am the black sword underneath your feet. I am the rebel without a pause. P warned you about me. The Statue of Liberty in chains. I am the future. If I were then on eagle's wings which bore you to me, so I shall be. I am.
I got something to say.
You know, you getting taped right now. On tape. Everything's being taped. So if you don't want to be using a court of law, I would hold.
You good, but I mean, was that helpful though?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't figure out. I understood the whole delegate part, but I never caucused, so I wasn't sure what the process was. Because he's saying people in prison can't caucus. They can't.
Right.
Because you have to physically be.
Right. I lost my screen.
Yeah. I got to start taping. You know. I start taping.
Yeah, in prison it's one thing. When you come home, you can't vote until you're off probation.
Oh, yep.
But what they just voted on is that the party, the DFL party anyways, is going to be, the GOP got their own process, but the DFL is going to allow people to vote, and if anyone's got an issue, they can sue the party.
Okay.
Is what Simon just said. And so, yeah.
All right, we about to, I got something to say. I'm SAF Moe, your prison lawyer, with my man
Rob B in the middle.
We got a special guest with you. He came down here to talk to us and really shed some light on this whole criminal and justice system and how we can get more politically active in it. My man, Justin Terrell.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate y'all.
Yes, sir.
All right. Can you give me some backstory to how you got into this process?
Yeah, like how I became an advocate.
Advocate. Well, you're actually I look at you like you're one of the few people who's an advocate, who's actually understands what's going on, who's not doing it specifically for any type of monetary. You're doing it specifically because it's a burning inside of you.
From the heart.
So that's why I that's a whole different.
Yo, well that's high praise, and I appreciate that, and I accept that. I receive that. I'm definitely not getting rich doing this work. I think so. So for me, really, it starts with it starts with being black in America. It starts with my ancestors. So my family originated out of a small town in Texas. My sort of forefathers of my family, they when slavery was over, they walked from Alabama to Texas and settled in a town with Native American folks and black folks. There were 9 black families. They built a community, sharecropping community, And, after a series of lynchings, and the KKK came and raided and took all of that away, right?
Wow. What town was this?
So you know how towns change. So,
Yeah.
What we called it, little dime box, big dime box, we had those kind of names. And so that's the town where my family originated out of. But why I bring that up is because that set my family down a track record, right? A road, a path where the scars and burns from those flames, turned into generational poverty. And every step of the way that people in my family encountered systems that were supposedly there to protect us, not only did they fail to do that, but they facilitated the harm against my family, right? Okay. And so we ended up here in Minnesota by way of the Great Migration, where I got to experience the criminal legal system as a young man growing up in the 90s. And that encouraged me to become a social worker. And so I worked with the community as an educator, as a counselor, for over 10 years. And one day I worked with young people, and I ended up working with the adult homeless population. And I was working at the shelter. And one day one of my former youth showed up in the shelter. Now keep in mind, I had kids go to prison for murder, all of that, the whole nine, students of mine and families I've worked with that really struggled. But I just remember this one day being at the shelter, and this kid that I used to love, man, showed up in shelter as an adult. And I was like, to hell with this. This ain't no accident. This dude's a knucklehead, but he shouldn't be here. Right? And that to me was the moment where I realized that I had to figure out how to enact systemic change and find the tools to do that, because no one was teaching me. And I think it's important to recognize that they don't teach us how to build power in our communities, right? And so I just became obsessed with it. I read everything. Bobby Seale, Huey P., like Angela Davis, talked to my friends who were organizers and started really digging into organizing. Peggy Flanagan, the lieutenant governor, she used to work for Wellstone Action, where she trained on organizing. I went to a training with her. Eventually I went back to grad school and I learned how to do this work. And then I took a job leading a little program called Justice for All at Take Action, Minnesota, where we fought for Ban the Box and won, and kept
Ban the Box
and kept the private prison from opening.
Employment.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Ban the Box.
Okay.
Asking about your employment history, your criminal history on your employment applications. We won that fight. We kept the private prison from opening in Western Minnesota. We took on voting rights, and folks who know Kevin Reese, we once ran an action one time where Kev organized 100 letters inside the prison and then sent them to me, and I went and picked up his son, and we went and met with the governor and hand delivered them to the governor. Like, brothers who was locked down really want to come home to safe communities, jobs, housing, and opportunities, but they also want to come home to be able to add their voice to the democracy. And so that's the kind of work I did for 6 years after leaving there to go to the state and advise the governor directly. And then I left that job for what is really my dream job, which is the Minnesota Justice Research Center.
Now, I want to back up just a little bit. I think you're talking about second chance at some particular point. And I know that they deal specifically with voting rights when it comes to individuals being locked up. Am I correct? Second Chance
Coalition?
Second Chance Coalition.
Yeah, I've been a part of the Second Chance Coalition for, I don't know, I feel like I gotta be up there with some of the OGs, right? So I was around when Sarah Walker started that, and have been a part of it for a while. Ironically, not to brag or anything, but my wife is the current president of the Second Chance Coalition. So in our household, we wake up every day thinking about justice and advocating for folks and making sure that we build safer communities for everyone. And so Second Chance has been a big advocate for restoration of voting rights, ban the box, a lot of the issues that I worked on.
Yeah, and I met with Second Chance while I was locked up too. They actually came in. What happened was I heard Kevin Reese on KMOJ.
Yeah.
And when I heard him on KMOJ, that sparked my interest. And then Second Chance, right when I called them, they came in. I spoke with them. and was involved in it. We're still, that was before Ban the Box that even was passed, and there's a lot of other things that's going on. So I did that, and that was interesting. The problem I have, like a lot of times with the advocacy work or the activism work, a lot of individuals who are into that work aren't being recognized. And if they are being recognized, they're being recognized for the wrong reasons. We had a little conversation about that and sort of cleared it out. You know, either I look at it, either you're getting called a revolutionary or you're being called an Uncle Tom.
Yeah. Or getting called both sometimes.
Well, you know what I'm saying? So I just want to clear it up because and people utilize these terms, but I say look at the works at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Look at the works, right? You know, you call anybody anything, but they're out there working for an end result. And if the end result benefits the community, then who are we to be the judge?
Yeah. I mean, it's complicated, right? Because the reality is, if you know, you read the news and whatnot, or you listen to different political perspectives, and people will have you think that we have like a robust criminal justice reform effort in Minnesota, and we really don't. Like, if you look at the political parties where they stand on the issue, you know, it's not a very robust agenda, even though right now the governor's getting ready to roll out his budget proposal, and so there's some good stuff in there, right? But as far as like grassroots organizing, one of the top advocates for prison reform right now is the commissioner of the DOC, right? Like, this is a huge problem. We don't have enough people surrounding our systems, encouraging them to serve our communities better. And part of that is because our communities are so beat down. And I think that
excuse me, is that your theory on it? That or is the fact that people don't care? Or is it the fact people don't understand? Or is it the fact that people don't know where to begin? I mean,
should start with the policing in the community. For one, they got police working in our communities that live an hour away.
This is what I'm saying. So it's all of the above, right? And a simple project like that, this idea that, you know, who's really most uncomfortable with that? It's our community that's worried about where the police live, right?
Yeah.
Because we know that if they don't live in our community, they don't understand us, and we're driving in every day, this is going to face some problem. Like, I don't have time to interpret to you what's happening here. You know, in a certain situation, and the officer's like, I ain't got time for you to interpret either, so we just I'm gonna take charge, and it's gonna be what it is. And that's where problems arise. And so, but in Linden Hills, they're not worried about residency, right? In Kingfield, they're worried about residency from a political standpoint. You know, and so, like, depending on your neighborhood, it shows you what you care about. And we don't, and while we have more Black-led, formerly incarcerated-led organizations today than we've probably had ever. I don't know that for a fact. But it shows that we're starting to build an infrastructure that is actually going to be positioned to advocate for the things that our communities need. The problem is that we have, I mean, this is Minnesota, so you got white folks on one side, you know, who just believe Black folks need to be controlled. And then you got white folks on the other side who just think, you just don't want to feel guilty being associated as a racist, right? And in the middle is our people, and we never, you know, all this money gets kicked around to all these other, you know, huge nonprofits and all these organizations who get to set the actual agenda for a lot of the political action happening. In the meantime, we're just trying to feed each other, support each other, and get by, and not catch hell when this side decides to defund the police, or this side decides to put a SWAT team on every corner. and that's like, and that's our reality, and that's the space I try to live in. Is like, what can I do down here with my people to build independent Black political power in order to advocate for policy change that actually is transformative and meaningful, and most importantly, that you feel it. Like, when I tell you that there's a group of girls on probation that my wife works with that would a few months ago, they had Kizzy Coakley, and you know Kizzy Coakley?
No, sir.
She had her on the show. She's a city council member in Minnetonka. Black woman with a felony on the record, right? Kizzy's bad. Like,
I'll get her information. Definitely reach out to her.
Kizzy's great. So Kizzy went to speak, and part of her story is part of my story. We both advocated for Ban the Box, and when she told this group of young girls what Ban the Box was and how we helped support get it passed, you know, like these kids and these girls they teenagers on probation. How you think they felt about hearing that from a powerful leader like her? Like they felt that. And that's really what I try to focus our work at the MJRC. Like, I want people to feel our work. I want people to understand that, like, this ain't theory. This ain't just research. This is about actually changing the terrain by which we walk every day. And you feel it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, definitely. I just feel like Minnesota doesn't have that Oakland. He doesn't have that. When you talk about, cause when I was in a joint and a lot of the like critical resistance, all these places I wrote to came out of California. And they understood what the fight was, exactly who was it against, and you know. So Minnesota doesn't have that, and I don't know how they're going to go about getting it. You know, even as we come out the joint, and I talk to different brothers, it seems like even our conversation is different now. We see things differently than when we saw when we was in that box. So, you know, when you say grassroots organization, I see a lot of organizing. I see a lot of people in the works. I see a lot of people with an agenda, but the agenda seems to be skewed at the end of the day. It's like, okay, here's what I mean in a classic example, personal.
Yeah.
I get out and I try to do the best I could possibly do, remembering what I saw in prison and what I think that they need. But then I talk to brothers in prison. They say, hey, y'all don't even know what the hell y'all talking about, because what we need in prison, because y'all not dealing with it on a day-to-day basis, you don't know what we're talking about. So you guys don't even represent what we need. The omnibudsman being one critical thing that I thought was going to change the game up in the prison. But for some reason, they're telling me that position has either been vacant, they haven't done their jobs. And have you been hearing?
At the end of the day, they're one of them too.
Well, they wasn't supposed to be like that.
Before we go too far down this road, I should full disclosure, the former ombudsman who just left that role a week or two ago was on the board of my organization. And so, like, I was very much involved in helping set up the ombudsman's office. So I'm happy to talk about it.
Well, I just want to clear it up. So we know.
Well, also, I don't care. Like, I'm not here to protect that.
No.
The relationship.
Because most people don't even know what it is.
Yeah.
So just so we can clarify what it is, what it's supposed to be doing, and where is it lacking. Because I heard prior to that, because they didn't happen when I was in.
Exactly.
That was going to change the game.
Well, here's the thing. Like, so let's back up to your comment about who sets the agenda. So the ombudsman actually came from the long-term offenders agenda that Kev and Zeke and all those guys put together when they were locked down, right? And so, like, it literally was like, I worked with them while they were incarcerated, and I was like, what are the things that would make a difference? And that was like ombudsman. And I remember sitting at a table with Nikema Levy-Pounds and being like, and a coalition of folks, and be like, hey, y'all, this is the thing. I think we can get this done, right? And it took way longer than we could because it took way longer than it should, because we couldn't all figure out a way to work together and get our life together on the outside, right? To the detriment of our brothers who are locked down. And that's something that, you know, I look back on, you know, embarrassed about. And yet we were still able to get it done, primarily when folks like Kev came home, we got it done, right? And so, but was the ombudsman ever going to solve all the problems of the brothers living behind the wall, so to speak? Like, no. But what I can say about it, so on the upside, Mark Hasse, who just left that role, one, opened the agency, so it's there, right? And that's no easy thing to do, right? So you got the doors open, kept the lights on, got it out of the DOC, so it was an agency within the DOC. So one of his big fights he had to take on was to get it out of the DOC so that it's part of the executive branch, but it's not part of under the authority of the commissioner.
Right.
If it was under the authority of the commissioner,
he would have been there. He got the fox watching the hen house.
So these are good things, right? And at the same time, now that they're out of the DOC doesn't necessarily feel like it always has to listen to the ombudsman, right? So now so what's the solution to that? The solution to that is having a robust group of community members dedicated to making sure the ombudsman is effective. And they have an advisory group, I believe. And so there's some things in place, but let me just be clear. It's been a year and a half. You know what I'm saying? And it was gone for like how many years?
Years. They used to talk about it like it was a myth. My whole deal was like, prior to that, it was effective, supposedly. From what I mean, I don't know. It's all mythology right now.
It's all about leadership in those roles. As someone who used to lead a state agency, you know, when I got there, it was a mess. You know what I'm saying? And I had, 3 lawsuits on day one, right? and so it's all about leadership. So the real question is, who do they hire next? Because who they hire next could actually take that organization to the next level. Or
why isn't it just a community? I think like all these positions, like where they're running amok is, once you find someone who has formerly had someone incarcerated and put them in positions.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm just
that
saying,
shows a track record of change in the community. He's changed his criminal ways.
It don't have to be. It doesn't have to even be a felon. It could be a person like they're so quick to grab a victim and put it on their agenda and say, here's a victim, and we're going to make laws based on this person's horrific.
It's kind of like they got the ex-drug addicts running the drug treatment programs in prison right now.
I'm saying outside, when they get outside, they get a little bit of money. Why aren't we then just empowering these family members? Hey, you had someone who was now locked up forever. Won't you become the omnibusman?
Right. I think right now you actually have a bench of folks who could do that. There's a lot of people out there who are formerly incarcerated, who are building and running organizations and whatnot. For every brother that comes home that messes that.
One more time.
Wait, tell them again.
So thank you all for just being here today and all the wonderful on my previous lessons, cases, and tweets. I recently received an email about this issue, and honestly, my heart was so grieved that people in Minnesota, mothers, grandmothers, aunts, uncles, people that were children at one point would think that it's acceptable to be lenient on those that commit crimes of perversion and malice. That's what we were talking about. We're talking about policy that is addressing violent crimes on children. And it's not a light topic by any means. So a little bit of my history, I was a victim of abuse, sexual abuse as a child, and the desire for a person, an offender, a predator, to steal so much from that person, their identity, their confidence, their voice, it will dismantle a person. And I have spent the better half of my entire life growing from that pain, growing from that trauma. And it is not a small feat. It is not a small feat. I don't think each and every one of you truly understand the severity that it causes in a person's life, emotional, physical, mental boundaries to be broken so by another person, and we as adults, because that's what we are, right? It is our moral responsibility to stand up for the people that don't have the right to be here in this room right now. The children that don't have the right to stand here and speak for themselves, right? I'm a mother. And the idea of a person violating my child's personal space, I can tell you, and I know my heart, my reaction would be vengeful. And not one of us is good, right? Like, I'm not going to tell you that I've never done anything wrong, because that would be a lie, wouldn't it? Now, each and every one of you, we've all made mistakes, right? If my actions to avenge a predator's attack on my child was met with the severity of the law that it would be, why are we not also meeting that initial attack then with the utmost severity? Is that the commission wants to wash their hands of their part in it. All I see is that you want to say, you know what? You're on parole, but I'm not actually responsible for putting you on parole, so therefore your choices then are not a reflection of my reviewing the criteria or holding you to a standard, right? So I think it is so important that not only do we continue to keep this point straight, people that grow up to affect people, that affect people, that affect people, right? Now, it was brought to my attention this last summer as I sat outside and I saw my child offend another child, right? like the severity of my job to intentionally train my child, right? I have just one, but that one person will affect a multitude of people I will never be able to count. What I instill in him, what he grows through, will be what he lives out of, right? Just as I had to address the pain and the trauma that I was living out of that caused me to make.
I got something to say.
I'm just saying,
Mm-hmm.
you gotta know.
I want to welcome you back to I Got Something to Say. We still got my man, Justin Terrell, here educating us. It was a quick break, and I appreciate this support. Keep liking, supporting us. Keep support the real. Check us out on all platforms. We're talking about this criminal injustice system, and I'm usually more of the vocal person, but I'm just sitting back listening because there's a lot of things that I find myself not knowing once I head over to the political agenda and see how things sort of work out. How things sort of pan themselves out. The one thing I wanted to talk about when we had talked about off camera is just how felons could actually caucus and at least get the person that they're interested in on the ticket. I mean, that's available to us.
It's complicated. So currently in Minnesota statute, they consider probation as part of your sentence. And so right now you have to, if you go to prison, if you get a felony and you are in prison, you can't vote.
Right.
When you get home, you can't vote until you complete your probation.
Right.
And, I don't know what the count is, but we're one of the few states that still do that. North Dakota, for example, if you just hop the border and you move to North Dakota, you can vote in North Dakota if you're
a felon.
Yeah, as soon as you get out of prison.
Florida just started it.
In Maine, I think is the same. I think Florida's
kind of funny.
Yeah, so Desmond Meade is actually a good friend of mine. He's a mentor of mine. He is leading a lot of the organizing down there, formerly incarcerated MacArthur Genius Fellow. Salute. This dude, this brother is so bad, y'all. Y'all should check out his book.
What's it called?
Let My People Vote.
Let My People Vote. And what's his name again?
Desmond Meade, man.
Listen,
check out his podcast.
I'm still in the 60s, man. I'm reading like you,
Huey and
I'm reading all Bobby Seale, Huey. You know what I'm saying? All them.
Desmond is a legend. The Florida voting rights fight is just amazing. Every organizer who cares about this issue should study it. This brother organized at one point LeBron James, Dwayne Wade to start paying brothers fines so that they could vote.
Yeah, because that's what Florida does.
Millions of dollars.
If your fine's not paid off, you can't vote.
Okay, listen.
Sorry, we off track.
No, we on track because what I want to talk about now, how I want to. I'm having a hard time with the whole political process.
Yeah.
Is because every time we come up with something, they come up with something. What I mean, like
that's what happened in Florida.
But in my mind, it's like the system doesn't work in my mind when you set all these vehicles up for us for democracy, and as soon as I achieve what democracy, then you come up with another obstacle. So that's what I'm saying. So is it not a democracy, and why shouldn't I be able to vote?
I mean, those are good questions to ask. I think, I did an interview with Keith Ellison a few months ago, and he said something to me that just stuck with me. He was like, the systems that we currently have in America aren't designed. They were built. They were designed for a non-democratic, diverse society, right? Mm-hmm. And so my mama was born in a world where she didn't have the right to vote, right?
Right.
And so you think about who we are today, it is not a surprise that these systems haven't evolved to actually serve who we are as America today, mm-hmm. right? And so are we a democracy is actually a real question, right? Because you see people fighting to change that process so that it's not about. The United States Senate, is split 50-50 when the majority of people live in blue districts, right? But they have, each state gets 2 senators, so there you have it, right? Mm-hmm. And this is something Martin Luther King was talking about,
Yeah.
So you actually in a lot of ways have a majority rule, which is supposed to be the antithesis of how we do our democracy.
Mm-hmm.
So, but back to the voting rights thing, just like succinctly, the political process of how you caucusing to become a delegate, delegates then choose the endorsed candidates for different races. That process was also being contended. And there's recently Simon Troutman, who's running for county attorney alongside Mary Moriarty, Sawasati, who's a Ramsey County prosecutor, and then Ryan Winkler, who's at the state as a legislator. Those are the 4 top candidates in Hennepin County. But Simon actually just did a civil rights suit with Noah McCourt, who's formerly incarcerated. I think he's a felon, but I think he has a felony, but I don't know if he's ever spent time in prison. Who wanted to participate in the political process. And I think there's at least one Senate district tonight making a vote to allow people who are formerly incarcerated and have criminal records to participate. I don't know the details and facts of how that's playing out at this very moment in real time, but I understand that there's supposed to be some news announcement, some press announcements sometime soon.
Excuse my ignorance, but I've never been to a caucus or any political.
Tuesday, a week from today.
So when I get there, so how would they know if I was a felon? Is me giving them a perjury deal where I signed it? I'm not. Do they run a background check when I come through the door?
No, they don't do all that.
Because the whole thing about it is individuals who are currently on parole being violated because they committed a crime. Because if you vote and you're a felon, that's a crime. So I'm just trying to figure out if I did go. So we rally the troops. We get on air. We do a TikTok. We do all, get viral with it. And then individuals decide to come down there. Is there anything if me and you walk through the doors and keep me from walking through there, and I'm saying, hold on, wait, Mr. Ward, we know you have a felony. We need to clear X, Y, and Z up with you.
So that's not how it works. Usually what happens is when you go to caucus, so you have to register to go to caucus, right? This year it's virtual and they're doing a lottery system. So it's different this year. I can't speak in depth to the processes. I literally just got a text message about it yesterday as I was trying to dig into it. But typically in a caucus process, a caucus is just a gathering of your community. Like it's just your neighbors going to talk about party business, and whether that's DFL or GOP. And so, it's just a gathering of your neighbors in your area who will then select delegates to represent your area to then further party business, including endorsements. And so there's no background check or anything like that. However, people are, if the party has a rule that says you have to be a registered voter, that's where so you're not checking people's backgrounds.
But you're checking to see if they're registered.
If you're a registered voter,
you can't vet them.
See if they got a voter registration card.
Yeah, you can't vote. Well, I mean, the party uses a system called the Voter Activation Network, which tracks all registered voters, and so you can get a list. These political parties get lists from those, and they call potential delegates, and so most of the folks who go to caucuses go every time, right? And so you kind of know who's going to show up, and so that's how they track, who's registered voters and whatnot. And so that's the debate that they're having is on the DFL side at least. And so
it's the same good old boys all the time.
I mean, sure. I mean, I think, when I started caucusing, I noticed that people were very excited to see a brother in the room. Because it was like, you always get one or two responses. It's like, oh, we're so happy you're here. Oh, it's like, oh, this cat's here.
That's how I felt when I was at the sentencing board. Like, why are you even here?
Yeah.
Why are you even here? Why are you even showing up in a room when? But not to digress. But you were just continuing with the caucusing process.
Yeah, and so part of why it's confusing to me is because years ago I advocated to actually allow people with criminal histories who may not be eligible to vote to still participate in the political process, and so. The fact that it's gone to court since then, the fact that these things are still being debated in the courts and that people are taking votes, it's very much the debate is happening in real time right now.
Right.
So I don't feel super confident about it because I know our community, right? If you say people can vote or participate, they're gonna go check it out, right?
Right.
So I don't want to send people down the wrong
path.
Right. My best advice is just to check with the party and go online and see what they got to say. Now, the parties, because it could be either. But I will say that, you give me an opportunity to talk about the Minnesota Justice Research Center now. So for the last couple of election cycles, I have always been very passionate about getting formerly incarcerated folks to vote. And so I designed a work plan to identify through court data people who are eligible to vote because they completed felony probation, but may not know it. And so we put together a statewide list, and we have volunteers, brothers with criminal records, calling people, brothers and sisters with criminal records, calling brothers and sisters with criminal records. And we probably, I think our last election cycle, I haven't seen the actual data, but our target was 5,000 formerly incarcerated folks to vote statewide. Now, when you think about a state with 5 million people in it, that's not a very high number. But when you think about people and how they treat our community, I don't have a felony. I've had a gross misdemeanor, which also caused hell in my life. But and also I caused hell in someone else's life, right? So there's that. But the reality is that we get forgotten about.
Right.
I didn't think I could vote, and all I had was a gross misdemeanor. You know what I'm saying? Right. And so you actually do got to do a lot of community education, get the right information out, so that people can take advantage and actually get involved.
Right. I guarantee you, if the DFLers decide and open up this floodgate, I guarantee the GOP is going to get right on board.
It's funny, you would assume so. So Nick Zerwas was a representative in the state house who would tell me this story about when he was door knocking in Elk River, where his district was, that he would, he's a Republican, he would door knock another Republican, and they would answer the door and they would say, "Hey, bro, we love you, Nick. We think you're great, but I can't vote for you because I'm a felon." And he was he literally came out to support our bill because he was I want Republicans to be able to vote for me. And another thing I'll say is because y'all two have been locked up, y'all know there's a lot of Republicans in prison.
Well, yeah.
I see.
Yeah, and it's messed up. The criminal justice system is you'll still find people along party lines in prison.
They can't come
together.
They showed their face when Trump was running for president. I was in there.
Well, you got that on, but you're gonna have your COs. Who are going to be supporters.
Inmates.
But I know, that's what I'm getting down. So you're going to have COs. What tripped me out the most was, the inmates. And they were.
And then there was another large number of those were not this. They were.
Well, yeah, that's going, but I was surprised to have anybody in favor of the Republicans. Yeah. The way they were talking and what they talk about. But you have some people, I don't know if they compartmentalize or they just feel like that's not me they're talking about. They're talking about someone else. But you have people who listen to Fox News and follow. But it's just funny how the lines are similar in incarceration. There's nobody really behind. The criminal justice system is flawed, even in prison, even if they got a raw deal. And that's crazy. So I'm not going out saying that individuals can vote, because that's what I thought prior. I understand now that we can play a part in the political process, but it also needs to be spelled out.
You got to check with the party.
Yeah, you got to check. Yeah.
Now, and this is but this brings us back to your other question a few minutes ago. Is are we a democracy? Right? It's well,
no, I don't think so.
These people live in society. They pay taxes if they're lucky enough to have a job. And they contribute to society in numerous ways by supporting their friends and family, whatever. And if their kids go to school in a public school district, they actually don't have the right to vote for school board.
Nothing.
You know what I'm saying? They can't vote for the governor who appoints the commissioner of the DOC, right?
Yeah, but you can pay taxes.
They can't vote for judges.
But you can pay taxes.
But you can pay taxes.
But you can pay
taxes. I always look at it this way. I'm always look, most people don't know who's running for judge. Right. Most people don't even know you can vote for a judge until you flip over the ballot.
Yeah.
I think, and this is one of my out of the world more radical ideas, so I'm not being 100% serious here, but I think we should pass a bill that says only formerly incarcerated people can vote for judges.
Oh, it'd be
because the one thing I know,
we came up with that'll change things and judges get their act together. You would think. But the other thing is, what somebody brought up too, is that they need to charging police officers who are part and party to these killings of African Americans. They need to charge them all, like they charge us.
Yeah,
accomplice to
you're talking about the felony murder law.
Well, yeah.
Anything. If all three of us got pulled over in the same car and they found drugs in the car, all three of us going to jail. All three of us getting charged with them drugs.
Yeah, you talking about felony murder law. And that's the thing. That they get so many young people like that. and it's you know it's really tragic. But you know, I had a young lady who was a youth I used to work with who was sentenced recently, you know, for her part in a horrific murder. And you know, like, I'm not saying policies and how they hurt people who are going through the system and we treat it like that's the full story, and it really isn't. Like, the real issue is, what I try to convey to folks is, like, it's not that I'm trying to make life better for people like myself who have caused harm to other people, or people or like y'all. It's not about us, actually. It's about everyone. It's about, how do you actually create a safe society? And so a lot of times, you know, people will criticize us for not considering the impact on victims. And I'm like, no, that's not it. It's not about victim versus offender. What it really is about accountability. If you think about it, we have a criminal legal system that doesn't hold anybody accountable. The minute I get accused of a crime, I have to deny it, basically, right? Like there's no opportunity. And if I do admit to it, it's for leniency or something. Like, it is not. Accountability is actually about me recognizing that I did harm to you, and us having a system that can facilitate us to be in practice together to repair that harm.
Right.
The outcome of the system we have now is about punishment.
All it is.
And if you focus solely on punishment, the person who was harmed in the first place gets absolutely nothing. And so I try to let people know, like, it's not about, I'm not an advocate to make sure that, like, just people impacted by the system feel safe in society. I actually think our system fails all of us. You know, it didn't do anything for me when my cousin was murdered and dragged in the street. This system did nothing for me, right? It did nothing for her mama, her sisters. You know, like, my family is just left ripped open, laid bare in the middle of the street, mourning our loved one. And the brother who did it, we're supposed to feel good because he's in a cell? Like, come on, man. That's not justice.
It never has been.
Yeah.
My two things is that, and I want you to, if you wanted to go further, that's fine. But as you was talking, I thought about one thing, Russell, and the circle of justice.
Yeah.
Circle of peace. Circle of peace.
Yeah.
A circle
I thought about something else too.
And two,
I seen one of your videos.
And two, I thought about how much is this system connected to slavery.
Yeah.
And that's why we can't receive any type of, it's not even, I'm not even looking for gratification. I'm just saying at the end of the day, there's no, they're not trying to repair the community. All they're trying to do is do the same thing they did. They were trying to rip the black males out of their community, put them in these rural white communities, and utilize their services at the end of the day. That's my understanding of it. So,
Right.
What were you gonna say?
Oh, and I seen one of your videos too when you were talking, and you were saying how people act and stuff. I remember hearing you say people act based on their values. You know what I'm saying? And I wanted, whenever you get a chance after you ask serious questions, I want you to expound on that a little bit.
He could expound on it now. I just was making a point. He brought those thoughts up in my head when he said what he said. Support, like, subscribe, y'all. Go ahead.
Support, like, subscribe. YouTube algorithms. So I mean, there's a lot of ways to look at that. You know, Cornel West, he said that that justice is how we love each other in public. You know, Bell Hooks talks about how love, the beloved community, was at the center of Martin Luther King's message. That love, right? I think most of us value love, and that believe that our value in love, like, helps us, you know, spawns us to look out for our people. It pushes us to start families, to grow families, to support other people's families, and I think that, like, we overlook values like that far too much. It also, love also does this crazy thing where when I love something and it is taken away from me, it makes me feel that deeply wounded, and I want revenge on that person. Danielle Sered, who spoke at our conference this year, she's the author of Until We Reckon, and I can't tell you enough how incredible I think this book is. So she leads a program called Common Justice out of New York, where if the offender and the victim both agree to it, there's a limit on, there's a ceiling on the crime. So if it's like, you know, manslaughter, you know, they're not going to get referred to this program. But and then bear with me because there's some great stories here. I'll just tell one. But the first thing she does is she goes to victims and asks them, like, what do you want? And there's this one mother whose son was assaulted, and they asked her, what do you want for the offender to experience? Do you want him to come with our program? Do you want him to get locked up and punished? And the mom was like, actually, what I want to do is drown that boy. And then she said, no, actually, what I want to do is burn him alive. And then she said, no, actually, what I want to do is drown him in a lake, in a river of fire, right? That's what she said. That's how she felt, because when we love somebody and they're harmed, that's how we feel. That's real. So you have to deal with people's values and ideas and how we feel, right? And know what that mother said next was, one day that boy's going to come out of prison. If I send him to prison, he's going to come out of prison. He's going to be walking down the street, and my boy's probably going to pass him. And at that point, I want that young man to have gone through an experience that means he won't hurt my boy again, which is something that victims say over and over again. I don't want what happened to me to happen to somebody else. Like, I was robbed. My house was robbed on Christmas Day in 2005. I'll never forget it, right? And I never want someone else to experience that.
Right.
And here's the thing. Locking somebody up doesn't prevent that from happening. What does? An alignment of our shared values in society does that. So you know what it's like when you go to auntie's house. There's certain things you do. You take your shoes off at the door. You know, you're gonna eat what's on your plate, regardless if you don't like it or not. There are rules and understandings. And it's interesting because law enforcement knows this. That beat cops, not command and conquer, but there's these theories within law enforcement that affirm this, right? That if communities are clear about their values, their shared values, and that they can create a culture where they're addressing the small things in society in their neighborhood. So like one research study by Patrick Sharkey asked the community, I love this. I want to do this study, by the way. He was like, they went on the block and they asked people, some of the most dangerous blocks in, I think it was Chicago or Baltimore. And they said, who runs your block? Who runs your block? Right? And I just think that is a very important question that we don't get asked. Who runs our block? Who is in charge of our community? Who do we trust? Who do we rely on? If we're in trouble, where do we go? If we broke, who do we borrow money from? If we need to get high, who got the best weed that I know is not going to be no drama dealing with? Like, these things are values and structures that govern our community that we don't give enough attention to. And I think that what we have to do is understand that our criminal legal system doesn't give any attention to it either.
Right.
As a matter of fact, like most of the time when we're focused on punishing folks, it's trying to break that structure. You know? And it's not just the criminal legal system, it's housing. So now you got public housing, but you can't have your ex-husband up in there. And then we got, which is another project we're working on with Returning Home St. Paul, is by supporting brothers coming out of prison, working with the Jama Place and the city of St. Paul and the Housing Link. We get them into market rate, we're evaluating it, but the city gets them into market rate housing. And one of our early, and I can't talk about the study really in depth, but one of the things that we've learned is that a lot of these cats is fathers.
And a lot of baby mama drama to go with it.
If you get them stable and past that first 3 months when we all freak out over having too many bills, right?
Yeah.
Like, you can actually save money by supporting these cats. But I just went on a huge tirade. My bad.
No. Let
me close it out for you.
Yeah, but I want to go back there.
But let me close it out for you. So the second story from Daniel Sered talks about this brother who was assaulted, and they chose to go through a program, and the guy who assaulted him was like, you know what? I know I can teach you how to fight. And so you get this moment where these two brothers are engaged in are under supervision, right? are having self-defense lessons. And this guy who was a victim finds himself in the same position that he was in when this man assaulted him, in like a hold, right? And he learns how to get out of it. And I just think that too often, he learns how to get out of it from the person who put him in it in the first place.
Right.
That is where our criminal legal system doesn't apply any energy there. The actual opportunity for repair. It talks about rehabilitation, which is a joke in my opinion. You don't rehabilitate people by sitting them in cells all day long. Now, look, I understand some folks is crazy and need to sit down, and we can talk about those people in our society. I'm here for that. But the idea that we are not prioritizing repair, that's a value. You see what I'm saying? Like, what are the values that govern our criminal legal system? Right now, it's just punishment.
And money.
And money and profit. Punishment, profit. I'm sure we can come up with a whole nother P, right? But the reality is, like, I want to see values like trust and love and accountability and repair. Like, all those things that, like, I wish my family were better at. You know what I'm saying? Like those are the things that I want to see in our criminal legal system.
So I'm gonna bring this up, and I feel like everything you're saying is not nothing new. You're not saying anything that they don't know, that don't exist. In fact, at one particular time, they had all those things. Prisons used to be rehabilitative, right? When you got out of prison, you got money to get back into the community to help. You went out and bought clothes prior to getting out of the community. Had all these little things set up because they knew that the things that's necessary for you to come back to the community. It's not rocket science what a man needs, you know? And if I looked at the DOC, this is just, I'm going back into the DOC and look at how they removed any way for you to be a man. Because the whole concept they have is to make them as dehumanize them as much as possible. The reason I'm bringing this up is because when you say, we want to try to institute hope inside of hopelessness. You know what? It's their job to make you feel like you're the worst person in the world. Nobody's in the world wants you. So, I mean, how do you remove that from these individuals? And then because they feel like if you have anything else going on for you, like if I'm happy that day because I'm gonna get out and I got a nice job that I'm about to go off to, they're mad because I committed a crime 15 years ago and I still should be paying for it. How do you rectify that? This individual feeling as though I deserve what I need, what I'm getting. I should be getting my just desert.
I mean, look, like you said a lot there.
I can back it up.
Nah, like here's my like genuine response is Brian Stevenson. If you read Just Mercy, you know, Brian Stevenson is like, it's not, I'm paraphrasing, I'm not quoting, but it's the thing that I agree with him on is like, it's not this question about, should we punish or should we not punish? Or more so like, I think politicians look at it this way, are you worthy to be punished or are you worthy to be protected? Right.
That's the worthy victim and the unworthy victim. In criminal justice, that's sort of what they call them.
Exactly. But here's the thing that I'm like shocked we don't ask this question enough. Are you worthy to punish? Are you worthy to decide who's worthy?
Right.
Why are people so hyped about their ability to punish people? Like that is some crazy stuff.
But I feel like being white in America gives you that supervision, that innate ability to be able to judge other people. It gives it to you.
Judge other people is mild, brother. It's mild because that's not what happened with the Ahmaud Arbery case. Is that essentially you had white folks saying
taking the law in their own hands.
In prison or unsupervised release against them a second time does nothing to advance community safety and fundamentally undermines efforts to restore people in relationship and in community. And like Representative Mariana said earlier, Minnesota led the nation in 1978 when our legislature established the country's first sentencing guideline commission. The commission's very purpose as a group of 11 individuals is to establish and maintain the rules that judges must follow in felony sentencing.
Taking law in there. What was the law that they?
No. Well, I'm saying to the point where they feel like back in the days they could hang you.
They took a life in their own hands. That's what they used to. And they believe in the law that the way they had interpreted. It's not a law. It's an unspoken rule that they had internalized. And this is all speculation. I understand there are facts in this case. I'm not speaking to those facts. But like the way it's interpreted culturally into my container, anyways, is that you had a bunch of white folks who can I say the N-word on the show? They had a bunch of white folks who told a nigga what to do, and the nigga didn't do what they said, and so they were allowed to take his life, as Ta-Nehisi Coates talks about that his body was basically on lease, in
modern day lynching.
You know what I'm saying?
Is it 1950? Is it 1940s again?
Yeah.
Because in my mind, it's like when we start talking about certain things and when criminal justice, it's like criminal justice could be perfect. Minnesota has the opportunity to reinvent criminal justice right now. You have a low population of individuals. You don't have a crime situation here. You don't, because all you say now is blue flu. These officers want to make it the worst possible. So every night there's something on the news. They're doing it purposely, you ask me. So they have an opportunity to change the way the system looks, and they're playing bipartisan.
Well, I will tell you this. I say this all the time. Minnesota sparked a global uprising. I mean, we had, come on, man, we had
definitely.
I mean, Michael Brown, Ahmaud Arbery,
Walter Scott.
Who's the sister in Wisconsin. I always think about the Lakia, the sister in Wisconsin who was holding a baby with a shotgun. We had, just so many men and women and trans women and folks who have fallen victim to police and community violence, right?
Both ways.
And what we know is that we are experiencing a surge in violent crime right now. But think about why, though. In a lot of ways, the system that's supposed to be the response to that violent crime, in a lot of ways, is facilitating it.
Well, I say blue flu. Because blue flu, if you watch 37 Shots, I forgot about it, how police officers won't police unless they can police their way. Yeah. So they allow these things to occur. So you can say, I want more police officers I want more these people get locked up and they get what they want.
137 shots.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that I don't understand is how people don't see the okie doke, because we do this. It's not just that. It's not just, so after every uprising, this is what happens. During every pandemic, this is what happens.
Exactly.
And so these are patterns of behavior, but know what else I don't think people recognize, and I don't always agree with Black Visions Collective in their organizing strategies. I think they're far too disconnected from the community and really have to work on that. And I think part of what they're trying to do is also remind us that this happens every budget cycle. Every budget cycle, you see young Black men on TV robbing folks at the Twin Stadium. They make sure they elevate the stories on violent crime to justify police budgets.
Why they need this money.
And it is an okie doke that we fall for every single time. Now, let me be clear. I'm reading a lot of Mariam Kaba, and I don't know that Mariam Kaba would claim me as an abolitionist. And I think there's some, white folks out there that look at Justin Terrell as like he hates cops. And I'm like, I spend a lot of time with cops.
Right.
I listen to officers. I think it's in a lot of ways in one of my official capacities that I don't want to talk about tonight. I feel like it's my duty in that role specifically to serve officers, right? Like I am in service of community safety.
Okay.
And in doing so, I have to raise a question. Why during those budget cycles when we're terrified of young Black boys, are we not funding the pastors, the teachers, Auntie Nia and them? We're not putting more money and resources into the after school programs at the park that we used to have. We're not putting more. Do you know how much you make for an hour if you work at a park at the front desk or doing the youth programs? It's insulting.
Yeah.
Like, we don't fund the community side of community safety. We only fund police. And so I think abolitionists in particular do have a good case for every voting citizen should be examining where your tax dollars go. It's responsible. Where I think their argument falls apart, and Mariam Kaba is like 100 billion times smarter than me, so I'm not challenging her. But where I think the fight falls apart is that there is not a vision for community safety being put together in community, which goes all the way back to a question you asked a while ago about who sets the agenda.
Right.
We never get this. And Black Visions, they are Take Action Minnesota is their fiscal sponsor. You have a lot of so defund the police. People think that we came up with that here. And there's an organization called Center for Popular Democracy that used to be Acorn. That used to,
I remember Acorn.
They used to rock with Angela Davis back in the day, where defund the police is a 60-year-old socialist, progressive
It worked in Camden, New Jersey.
agenda item. Yeah. Well, actually, it didn't. That's not what happened in Camden, New Jersey. What happened in Camden, New Jersey is essentially you had a receivership where law enforcement ended up at the county level. So they still got more. They got more cops in Camden, New Jersey than they did before. But they have different protocols and different governing body authorities, which is another thing we don't talk enough about with policing is the governing authority over law enforcement.
What is the governing authority over law enforcement?
So you got city, county, and state, right?
Right.
Part of the, people get confused, like on the I-94 protest last year when they kind of rounded everybody up. You gotta remember, like, those are state police.
Right. Yeah.
The state police, and don't forget this, and then the sheriffs at the county level, but the state troopers, they don't want us on the highways. They don't come into the hood. The highway is their turf. And so, yeah, they're pushing for harsh penalties, but I have to give props to the city attorney's office and the Legal Rights Center, who are actually working with folks who go through a restorative justice process, who went through that experience. It's something I really want to study and help tell the full story so that we can make sure that community members have a good experience that was non-punitive, that we actually hype that up and we learn from it. I think we're going to miss that opportunity, but I'm trying. So you got state, then you got sheriffs who run the counties, and then you got the jails, and you got your municipal police departments are in the cities. And in a lot of cities, they have two small departments, and so they share resources and whatnot. But I forgot what I was answering that.
Who's their boss?
So you have chief law enforcement officers, right? So the chief of police is appointed by the mayor typically. You have the for the sheriff is an elected seat. So the interesting thing people don't know about sheriff is that you're elected, which means for however long that term is, you don't have a boss. The voters are your boss. And so, this creates some like real problematic scenarios at times. And then you have, the state patrols with the Department of DPS, you got the BCA, all these things with the commissioner of Department of Public Safety is their boss. The Post Board, which I was referencing earlier, as I'm a member of the Post Board, which is the Peace Officer Standards and Training Board. We are in charge of the profession and the license that officers have to have in order to be officers.
Right.
So we're literally in charge of the profession of law enforcement. We set standards and training. We set minimum qualifications to become officers. We set the standards for how to operate when you are an officer. We do model policies for departments all over the state. And ultimately, if you're accused of misconduct at certain criminal levels, we can revoke your license.
How many people are on that board?
Oh man, you guys do a head count of how
many. No, for this approximate.
Roughly.
Because when you say this, I think about all the. I'm not specifically pointing to the tactics they use and reasons why they use to assassinate African American males. But to me, if I'm sitting on the board, I'm saying, okay, how's this officer justifying doing what he needs to do? Basically in the Derek Chauvin case, he said that the policies and procedures allowed him to do what he did.
Yeah, he was lying, but he said that. The facts are, his own department testified against his own, which we all know that that's a rare thing. And so, Derek Chauvin, someone who had 17 complaints, should have been dealt with a long time ago. And then frankly, I know I'm on the record, so and I'm a member of the Post Board, and so I don't want to disparage any of the work we're doing there. But I'll say, one, we're in the process of overhauling the standards of conduct. Okay. And so there's a whole community and police group that together working to set the standards of conduct for the entire profession in the state of Minnesota. It's a very meaningful, powerful project. If you're going to Minnesota Sentencing Guidelines Commission meetings, you should be following the Post Board.
Okay.
We have our next meeting's Thursday.
That's another public hearing we can come?
Yes, it's virtual. And I believe they refer, So there are opportunities for the public to weigh in, but to be honest, it's very rare that the public does.
Is it connected to your JRC.org?
No. So keep in mind, my day job is the executive director of the Minnesota Justice Research Center. You can read about our work that connects to the post board through we have a blog post on our Trust in Policing, the Role of White Supremacy report.
Okay.
And so if you read that blog post, it breaks down the whole campaign that we ran to get the post board to adopt a policy that prohibits law enforcement from associating with white supremacist terrorist organizations.
Okay.
So
it's funny you have to make. I mean,
I thought so too.
It's just like wow, come on, man. But let's take a break real quick. If you want to grab something to drink, whatever. How much time you got for me?
I'm good, man. I just
want
to stop by the homie's crib on the way home.
Let's take a break real quick, and then I need to plug this. I need to plug my EQ.
Is this
plug?
I got something to say. Jamendo.com. Jamendo.com.
To say.
Welcome back. So I got something to say. We back. We got Mr. Justin Terrell, the fame. I mean, see, I thought he was a myth, but he's here in person, folks, getting it to us, giving it to us. I don't know where it's coming from. It's divine. I'm trying to switch seats with him, try to get some of this divine intellect. You know what I'm saying? But he just said, the only thing I gotta do is pick up a book and read.
Nah, Audible. Man. Just do Audible, man. Do the audio book.
Audio. Man. I don't even have to do all. I can just drive.
Audible is an app. You can just put it on your phone.
I don't. Yeah. I just. If it ain't about shooting them up, bang bang. I don't know.
I had it. But
I'm just rolling with it. I read a lot of books. I read Mr. Bobby Seale's book. I read Mr. Huey P. Newton. Suicide is Revolution or something like that. Read his book. I read my guy book. Oh, come on now. All the guys back in the '60s who wrote books. I read their books. Most people like Malcolm X, of course. Everybody go into the joint reading Malcolm X, but you might say it's not applicable to nowadays, but it is, because exactly what's going on. It might not be at the level. What's going on now?
You say you read a lot of books.
Yes, sir.
Okay, did you read the 48 Laws of Power? Think you was doing something?
I read The Art of War, sir.
Okay.
The Art of War.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Use your strengths as use weaknesses as strengths, and strengths as weaknesses. Art of War. But let me.
I'm good. Don't worry about it.
All right. Welcome back. I got something to say. And we were just having a discussion about, you were saying about faith-based being something.
What I was saying is, like I said, the whole judicial system isn't a demon. as a whole.
And I think they are.
I mean, they got some demon ways and stuff like that. But out of the 8.5 years I did in Florida, the first 4 years I did was garbage because I was at regular prisons and I was gambling a lot, around a lot of gangbangers and wannabes and stuff like that. But my last 4.5 years, I was at a faith-based facility, and it was something more to do. They had all faiths there too. It wasn't their average faith-based like up here in Minnesota. Up here in Minnesota, all faith-based, all teen challenges, all drug programs and stuff are Christian-based.
Yeah, Christian-based.
But down there in Florida, you had the Muslim stuff. You can even do the Asatru and the whatever. Wicca, all the other stuff. They had everything. Anything you name, they had it. You want to worship Disneyland? They got that for you. You understand what I'm saying? You can start your own program and do that. But what I'm saying is, it was more opportunity. And then they had it's 30 days in a month average, right? Mm-hmm. Well, you had to have an average of 40 hours of programming a month. And if you didn't, they'd send you away from this faith-based facility. So it's 30 days in a month. That means you had to go do more than an hour a day.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You understand what I'm saying? So for more than an hour a day, you had to go do something that was program-oriented or faith-based oriented. And that's what did it for me. It made me go do something else.
So what I say,
made me start getting myself together.
The reason I say, I was already together and I was going to the law library.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't have no time to deal with no faith, nothing. I was trying to figure out how to get what they did to me and how I was going to get myself out of it and I was going to get back home. So I didn't want to hear nothing about, I went to the temple and did what I had to do. But I mean, that was when we had to go. And besides that, I was in the law library or I was doing something more I thought that was going to be productive with my time, period. And I don't feel like that institution could in any way, unless I came to the understanding of myself, changed me and made me a better person. I don't think it's designed.
You know how many times I was at a church service down there, and they had this church called Excel. They used to be called Church of Jacksonville, but they changed their name to Excel. Shout out to Excel. They down there in Jacksonville, Florida. But these people, they've been going to this prison for years and doing programs. You know how many people I see get out of prison in Florida? While I was there at that prison, that did they 2 years. You have to be out 2 years clean and not in trouble and off paper and stuff. Then they come back to the prison and speak to the people at the prison. You know how many people I seen do that down there?
Yeah,
they were producing productive citizens down there. The recidivism rate from that prison was down.
I think like what this makes me think of. So last year during the legislative session, the commissioner, and we had him speak at our conference about this. The commissioner of the DOC came forward with a proposal that would flip things. So right now, so when brothers go into prison, you're most interested in getting out of prison when you first get there.
Yeah.
But what do we do with them? They sit there for years and they don't do nothing, right? Unless they're short term.
Mm-hmm.
Short term get a lot of stuff. Women get a lot of stuff because a lot of the women are short term at Shakopee.
Right.
Now, everyone that I just like threw into those two buckets would tell me that they don't get enough. And so let me be clear, like I get that.
Yeah.
But what I will say is like the commissioner did bring a proposal that would flip it so that like even long-term offenders would get services up front, and that if you could complete like a program like what you're describing,
mm-hmm.
that it would reduce time off their sentence and whatnot. Man, don't you know? You would have thought he was opening the jails. I mean, people got
mm-hmm. Who the Republicans?
I'm trying not to speak in political terms.
No, but I'm just saying because that's how I see it.
There was clear opposition.
Yeah, that's how I see. Like, why wouldn't anybody just get behind something that's not letting you out, but gives you opportunity to get out?
I mean, the reality is we just got a lot of people. So I assume this number is much higher now, but it used to be 1 in 5 Minnesotans has a criminal history, which means there's 1 million people in the state, with a criminal history, and we walk around and act and behave as though that's not the case, right? Like there's just too many people who believe they're. I would ask this question in public a lot. I'd be like, raise your hand if you or someone you know has ever been impacted by the criminal legal system, and people would seriously. Most people would raise their hand, but then there'd be people that'd be like, "Nah, man, I don't know nobody," and I just be like,
ask them a question.
I'll be like, take a second to think about it, and then they'd be like, "Oh yeah."
That's what happened with Amir.
Yeah, well,
we asked her. She tried to say she ain't never been in jail.
But the thing about it is why do you think that? Why people? I understand why, and I got my theories on why. But that's why we having we having the difficulties because most people think that it doesn't affect them or they're not gonna have. But when you think about it, it's like who's not affected by the situation?
Exactly, but and that's the thing is that like as long as people feel like they're isolated from it, because the key principle around detainment is that like you take someone and you put them in a box, right, and we don't have to think about them no more. We're all safe from that person. It's just nonsense.
Explain that though, because you broke it down. That's how they think. They think that by giving a person more time, punishing them more, somehow it's gonna
keep you safer. And what actually happened. So it's just like there's the world as you want it to be, and then there's the world as it
Ideal.
is. A lot of people spend way too much time thinking they live in the world that they want it to be.
Ideally.
And that's a lot of what I think, just frankly, like mainstream folks apply to the criminal legal system. They think that so all these carjackings, right now. So they think, you arrest these kids off the street and then they get detained and then they're off the street and then we're safe.
Right.
And you're ignoring the fact that these kids, if it weren't for COVID and other circumstances, they wouldn't be in the streets in the first place. You know what I'm saying? So like you're ignoring the conditions that create where it's literally like these cats is like, I'm gonna wake up and hit the block today and jack an old lady is like the best idea they could come up with. Well, you should automatically assume there's something wrong with the environment the young person's living in, or to come to that conclusion, and we can address those things. But the reality is people just believe, kind of like what they're spoon-fed around community safety, that it's basically somebody else's job to keep your community safe. And what we all knew growing up is that it was actually our job to keep our community safe, because I couldn't trust, officer so-and-so who set up my homeboy to get shot in front of my high school. I couldn't trust, different parts of the system and whatnot. But I could trust some of the cats on my block in my neighborhood. Right? And that's the thing is we got to start actually like reconciling this false world that people think, where people believe that the criminal legal system is protecting you, and start understanding that you have always relied on the folks in your family and community to protect you. And we need to start making those
decisions.
Yeah.
Those will let's just be. What you need to do is the falsehood. You heard it when I got something to say. I said the reason this platform was necessary is because there's too much misinformation. Too much people believe in CSIs the way they go about doing things. Matlock. You know what I'm saying? Stuff doesn't happen like criminal justice doesn't play like the funniest thing, and it wasn't even funny, it was tragic. When I was in Stillwater, I had a gentleman come and sit down at the table, and he'd been in maybe 2 years. He was just starting to work on his criminal case, and he's like, I want to ask you guys a question. How do they go about proving that you didn't commit the crime? And it was the funniest thing. Like, what are you thinking, man? Where did you get that from in your mind that these people are working to help you get out of prison? When these were the same people that put you in prison,
right?
And people, and I feel like the people on the outside, they because they're so detached from what's going on, they believe it's some type of Hollywood deal. It's like forensics is being used by the defense, and if they didn't figure it out, then you must be guilty, and none of those devices or vehicles are being utilized for our defense.
Man, it's crazy. Like, first of all, go to your city website and look up the budget item for CSI, right? Like it ain't what you think it is, right? Like, most of that stuff is at the state and they farm it out. If you're picturing like the TV show, that's not the
disconnect of what I think people have. They believe. I mean, look how many CSIs they're on. They believe that at the end of the day,
and then people got the picture of the OJ trial, so they really had that picture.
And then so let's talk about all courts. The money. Let's talk about courts. Like, you're gonna see thousands of cases that never see a courtroom because of plea deals, right? Yeah. Like, we actually have justice by plea deal. And we don't, and it's not justice at all. And I think, like, if prosecutors were off, if they didn't have a microphone in front of them, I think they would all admit that this is a problem, right?
Yeah.
Look at the public defender's office. Like it's insane. It's the people in the system.
They're underpaid.
Well, I can't wrap my brain around, and I don't think I'm the smartest guy, but I also don't think I'm the stupidest guy. But like, when I talk to people who are part of the system, COs, law enforcement, lawyers, all of that, right? And I'm like, listen, y'all are on the front line. A cop shows up on the worst day of your life most of the time, right? Mm-hmm. You know, I talked to this one officer who like had the terrible assignment of picking up a tooth from a 10-year-old who had got shot in the face and survived, thank God, but like has to live with the trauma of being shot in the face. And this cop is picking up teeth out of the parking lot where it happened, right? Mm-hmm. Like, you see the worst in our community when it happens, and you're the first to respond. And you know more than anybody else what produces those moments, because you see them repeatedly. And when we go to the state to advocate for housing, you're not there. And we go to try to make sure brothers have a shot at employment, you're not there. And when you shoot and kill somebody and it causes a global uprising and we show up to advocate for accountability, like, you got all kinds of pushback. It is insane to me. Like, you are experiencing, it's the pedagogy of the oppressed.
Yeah, I read that. Yeah, I read that book.
The oppressor is bound to the same system as the oppressed.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, bro, we are actually in this struggle together.
Right.
I wish you would act like it.
But they,
you know?
And that's why you say come together as brothers or die as fools. I seen that.
Yeah.
I seen when you said that.
Yeah, that's Martin Luther King.
But you quoted Martin Luther King, but I seen it in the video you did from your desk.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. You're one of the like 2 people that saw that video.
It's like I got something to say. But based on that, on just what you were talking about in reference to, I feel personally, every time you talk about it, I think about my own personal experience and telling the CO that, or listen to an individual that I know that's innocent, or anybody that's in the joint, tell a CO that I'm innocent, I shouldn't be here, and the CO tell them, I can't believe that. I can't believe that you're innocent. I can't believe it. And it's like, to me, there's something wrong when you believe that this criminal justice system is so perfect. And I don't think they believe it.
I just know it's not.
I just believe that it's he can sleep better at night when he thinks that we all should be there.
Yeah, because it's almost like you want to avoid having Stockholm syndrome, you know?
Right.
Like these cats are, you know, and here's my thing. Like, I know so many officers who show up literally like in love with our community and wanting to do the best that they can for our community. And I remember I had a conversation with a cop like that who, like, I was like, this dude loves this stuff. Like, he shows up every day trying to find a way to, like, you know, he's never pulled his gun. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know if this dude even uses handcuffs. Like, he's just the nicest guy. He's here to serve. He wants to help the community. And I remember, like, I pushed him one time. I was like, you mean to tell me that you think the way this system is set up today, it helps you do the best that you can? And we were part of this group together, and that was the last time he came, because I was like, I think I caused an existential crisis, because I was asking him, if you could tear down and start from scratch, would you build what we have today? And the answer for a lot of these cats is no.
But it goes back to the pedagogy of the oppressed and generosity in itself. In order for you to be generous, you must be in a position to be generous. But that sets up that binary oppositional understanding that they have, superior, not superior. So for him to be a cop, he has to feel like these people are the impoverished, and I'm some type of saint coming to help them. And it shouldn't be like that. It's the pedagogies of oppressed. Everybody's on the same level. You're helping me as an officer because it's your job, but I'm also helping you as a community because I understand it's your job as an officer. You're not an overseer. You're here to help me X, Y, and Z.
Let the church say amen. Like, this is the problem. The problem with law enforcement, and once again, folks like Miriam Coppa would say that I'm crazy, but like, the problem with law enforcement to me isn't the fact that they exist. The problem with law enforcement, one, obviously they have a history of racial reckoning that they need to deal with, and frankly, I think their profession should be the first in line to do it and set an example for all the other professions. But that aside, I think the issue is the authority. The problem is that we've given the overseer the ultimate authority, right? And because Massa is on Wall Street now,
right?
but But the idea that we've given them so much authority that they feel like they come in and they police and control us. And what needs to be happen, the only way I see a path forward is where it is a mutual thing.
Right.
Where it's not about us over them and them over us, but it's like our liberation is bound together.
Right.
And that is
You said it. You said it. Our liberation is bound to each other.
I say it often.
You said it. I was coming to that.
It's the truth, though.
And what else I want you to talk about is when you said, I can't be what I ought to be until you be what you ought to be. You know what I'm saying?
So this is Martin Luther King. This is Aboriginal sayings that came out of Australia. Like this is solidarity, concept of solidarity, which is like, you know, like Martin Luther King says, like I can't be. You know what? I won't quote MLK. I'll quote. So and Justice for All. When I used to be at Justice for All, we had a chant where we would say like, I can't get free, and everyone would scream, I can't get free, and they would say, and then you'd say, look at your neighbor and say, you can't get free, and then everyone would say, you can't get free, and then we wrap it up as like, you know, until we all get free, right? Which is what Kev does, right? And then we chant, you know, the dead prez like, let's get free, right? The let's get free chant is what we gotta be about, and it's so important because I'm looking at police officers like y'all in bondage and you don't even see
right.
it.
CO is the same way. We just say the same thing. You doing a life sentence.
Come on,
you don't understand it.
And they know it.
Yeah.
And they know it, but they have to set it aside to show up for work.
I should tell COs all the time, I'm getting out before you.
Well,
facts.
It's to me that when I listen to you talk and understand where you're going. I said, well, somebody got to go down that road. I'm not going down that road. But somebody got to go down that road. I don't blame you.
It's not a fun road all the time.
Somebody got to go down that road because I've already seen that road. I seen how it ends, and I really don't want to be there. I want to be right where I am because I understand how they get down. You know what I'm saying? And what I mean is my personal experience. And when I was talking to Mayan the other day, we talked about that. He said he had to go through what he went through in order for him to come back here to give to the people, the public, the people what he got because he's got a burning desire like I got. You know what I'm saying? It don't come up. I don't want to wake up and go to work, but I want to wake up and do this, right? Because I believe that the guy sitting on the other side of the wall need this. One thing my God he calls me and talks to me all the time, and the reason I brought up the ombudsman or ombudsman, the reason I brought him up is because a lot of them feel like when they reach out to these organizations that their conversations are being interrupted by whoever. Because, you know, when you're in prison, they got the right to go through your mail. They know who you're talking to. And if you're trying to start up some stuff, I mean, come on, they don't really want you to. So he always had that. He's paranoid. He's done did a lot of time, but he understands, too, that a lot of the stuff that he's trying to send out might not be getting out because he's talking directly about the administration and what they're doing to him. So that's the reason I brought that up. And
I will say that at the prison level, I don't know. You know, there's a big disconnect between the prisons and the central office. So my gut says, you know, the folks at the prison who don't like the central office aren't doing
right. It's rank and file. It's rank and file.
Yeah.
It's administration. Rank and file administration. They all don't see things alike. And they don't see things the way they're supposed to be. The main thing, the reason I was glad you came here, because as I was driving here, I thought about this. Tell me if I'm wrong or I'm right. I believe we spoke about the Willie Lynch letter and how
let's talk about Willie Lynch.
The part I want to get into Willie Lynch, not all because I read it and I know about it, and everybody read it and know about it, was the fact when he said that if you follow these, whatever rules, commandments, whatever you want to call them, that it would enslave these individuals for
generations.
So I feel like we're past that comment. We've passed it really, because everybody I can talk to, like, oh yeah, I know about that. I think we're the generations it was talking about. We've been enslaved by the Willie Lynch theory. So you got, I'm putting it out there I got something to say, family, to these truly intelligent gentlemen sitting next to me. I feel personally we are the generation that he was talking, the generation he's talking about, because it's not about Willie Lynch, because we all know about it, but yet still we practice it. In order for you to be productive, you got to be part and partial to it. That's how I feel.
I mean, so back to my introduction, right? Like I am the product of slavery. You know, like my family came out of that. We experienced our own. You know, the reason my family survived the KKK raids on the land that we settled on is because my great great grandmother was a midwife for the white folks in town.
Oh, okay.
So when everyone else's houses was burning, ours was okay, you know? And I think that, and I think about that, like how we were allowed to survive that, but still terrorized to leave our land. And then when several of our family ended up in Oklahoma just in time for Black Wall Street, you know? So that's two. And then they went to California, and then ultimately my grandmother came here and had my mom and raised her here, where you know, then I came along with my sisters. But like the fact that we don't reckon with that, the fact that my family has to reckon with that.
Right.
But the systems that facilitated that don't have to reckon with that.
Nothing.
And the other thing I try to remind people is like, when you look at that picture from the Duluth lynching, you know, where are the ancestors of all those people in that photo? Right? Because that's 100 years ago.
Right.
They're here.
Right, still.
You want to know what one of them is? So the white woman who accused Clayton Jackson McGee of rape, her great nephew is the current chief of police in Duluth.
Makes sense.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it makes sense.
And we never talk about the fact that like these generations, right? Like people just assume we're here because we're here, right? Like, nah, there were people before you, there are people before you. And what your people did to my people was wrong, and we've never reckoned with it.
Never.
Which is why people are like so surprised. Oh, we're so politically divided and we're polarized and there's gonna be a civil like people get crazy about that stuff, right? Donald Trump and this and that. And I think that like the reality is that all of that is just like fruit on the vine, you know, from a rotten ass vine that grew out of slavery and the oppression of each other in this society, and we've never reckoned with it.
I don't feel like they feel like there's anything to reckon with. Get over it. But on top of that, I feel like the institutions, the reason why you have so much problems with the institutions, because they were set to do a certain thing. Yeah. And even if you swing the pendulum one way, it's swinging back even harder the other way. It's physics. So when you start talking about correcting, it's almost, to me, I'm not a nihilistic individual, but I feel like the things need to be torn down. They need to be, right now, this particular 2020, 2022, we should be talking about policing, how it looks and how it should, you know, dynamic, you know what I'm saying, functional, community orientated. Yeah. But everybody wants to go back to the 60s and police that way, you know what I'm saying, or certain people. I don't. That's where my conversation comes.
So like keeping in mind what is Willie Lynch, right? Like it's a comprehensive manual of slave tactics that you know were documented to be used but reported as one letter, right? The Willie Lynch was a description of a system of control, right? So there are two types of systems of control and systems of change. Democracy, system of change, like a really good one, in fact. Policing, system of control. Right? And when you look at systems of control that are punitive in nature, which most of them tend to be, you can always tie them back to the punitive nature of slavery.
Right.
And especially when they're producing racial disparities in their outcomes, which contribute to a whole host of racial disparities around health and life expectancy. And the fact that this is something that messed me up this year. I'll tell a quick personal story. I don't know if this is interesting to your viewers at all, but I hope your listeners and viewers are finding this conversation helpful. You know, my mom had a stroke this year, and she's okay. She's getting back on her feet and all of that. Strong Black woman, you know. Nothing magical about her except that she's my mama, and, you know. But and I think that when she had her stroke, I realized that my grandmother had a stroke and my great grandmother had a stroke.
Around the same ages?
Yeah. Well, yeah, and it just felt to me like at that moment that at some point as a Black woman in America, your head explodes, you know. And I said that to myself when I was joking to myself about it. I was like, oh, this is ridiculous. Why is life so hard? And I was like, damn, life is so hard for Black women. You know? You just
10 times harder than for a Black man.
I mean, I don't know if it's worth comparing.
Hell
is hell. You know what I'm saying?
I'm gonna give it to you. I'm gonna let you know there's degrees of hell.
Yeah, well, definitely, and I think patriarchy definitely is like, you know, contributes to the degree of hell for women. But like my point is that that's what systems of control produce, man. They produce that, like, generations of trauma and generations of health erosion and patterns that contribute to the fact that, I mean, you know, my guy Bukata Hayes from down in Mankato was at an event my wife was at, and she heard him say that his family had the same saying. You know, that at some point it was dementia. He was like, at some point in a black woman's life that you just go crazy. And it's just like, how the hell are two black men who ain't talked to each other in years, our families are going through the exact same thing? And it's because of the unhealthiness of our society and the failure to reckon with this stuff. And what I don't understand is, you know, like, I think white people in general, when we have these general conversations, I think white folks are like, well, you're just trying to blame me for things that I never did or whatever. And I'm like, I'm not trying to blame you for anything. I'm just trying to get you to recognize that the conditions in my community were facilitated by, like, you can go to the Capitol, the seats are still the same. Once upon a time, there were white folks that sat in those seats, and they passed a law that funded a highway through the middle class community in St. Paul. Once upon a time, there were people in those seats that agreed with the largest mass execution in the history of our country, of the Lakota people. Once upon a time, like, there were people in those seats that approved mandatory minimums that created mass incarceration. There were people in those seats that looked the other way on police misconduct that led to the murder of my people. There are people who sat in those seats and there's receipts. We can go back and read all of these bills and laws. It's there. This is my case for reparations. I'm like, no, I don't want anything from white people. What I want is, I mean, my wife is white. Like, I'm very much like, not like the white man is the devil, even though I read Malcolm when I was 10 years old, and definitely had a perspective for a time in my life. But like, the reality is, like, this isn't about shaming white folks or holding black folks blameless or innocent. It is not about any of that. It's just about the fact that, like, if you look on paper, we have generations of policies and laws that created the conditions of black people in this country, and that there's people who benefited from that, left and right. And now, as a father today, when I'm watching TV with my son, we watched Encanto. Have you guys seen Encanto? Y'all got kids?
No.
Oh, man, you gotta watch Encanto. It's amazing. But I'm watching Encanto, and they see all these beautiful brown cartoon characters running around singing and stuff. And it's based in Colombia, and it's just like, they can't get enough of Encanto. And I looked at my son one day and I told him, do you know that when I was a little boy, we didn't have cartoons like this? Like, in my lifetime, right? And all I'm saying is, like, let's reckon with that. Let's deal with that. Because I don't want black folks to be held innocent. I don't want white folks to be held blameless, full of blame. Like, this is not that game. Let's actually reconcile our systems and institutions and repair the harm that we've caused to each other. Because frankly, I don't know that our nation can continue if we don't.
And I feel like a lot of people don't care whether it does or it doesn't. At the end of the day, these systems was put in place as a control mechanism. At a time, you didn't want to be a nigga at all. You be a low-class white person, but you didn't want to be a nigga. You know what I'm saying? And as long as these, to me, if you ask me, what's the biggest understanding is that individuals feel as though if there's any type of equality, even just the minuscule amount of affirmative action, is too much, and we're gonna push back even harder.
Well, they don't have a problem with equality, because equality says that as a white person and a black person that you're equal. And so if you messing up as a black person, that's on you. But that's equality. They love that. What they have a real issue is equity.
You talking about the definition? You talking about the definition of equality? All men are created equal. That definition,
it's written in the Constitution.
All men are created equal. But they're gonna disseminate that down to me, even though I'm starting a track race 5 miles behind.
Well, and even the statement "all men are created equal" is exclusionary. Right?
Yeah.
Like, this is what I'm saying that Keith said to me a few weeks ago. Like, our institutions, our Constitution, our founding principles and documents in this country were not designed for the multicultural democratic society that we are today.
How do you fix it?
Honestly, man, like I spend.
How do you fix it?
I'm actually doing a podcast myself to answer this question. Right?
Is it like, specifically dealing with the fixing of diversification, or they're making this country live up to its promise?
So the question that I'm asking people is, what is the theory of transformation? Right? We could all name the problems left and right, and we can all talk about the issues and solutions that we think could fix them.
Right.
We can all talk about the world as it is and the world that we want to be in.
Right.
What I'm interested is the bridge, and what I am interested in is the bridge that connects the two. What is the pathway? What is the theory of transformation that will actually transport us down the pathway to the world we want to live in? Because too often we skip that part, because that's the part where all the tension is. That's where all the fighting is. And I was a short, buff dude my whole life, and so I never got to pass on a fight. So I've been trained. You know what I'm saying? Like I've been trained to live for the fight.
Yeah.
And that's why I think it's important, because too often we don't ask why, which is the most important.
Start within yourself.
We always jump in with what. What is the solution, right?
Yeah.
What I'm trying to get people is to back up and say, how? How do we build governance systems that are appropriate for the multicultural democratic society that we're becoming?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the most important question, is how? What is the pathway? Who do you need to talk to? Who do you need on your squad? What kind of resources and money do you need? Like that to me is the fight, right? And at the MJRC, that's fundamentally, like if you look at the research that we're doing, we are asking the question, how do we transform policing? How do we transform detention? How do we transform a criminal legal system that goes from punitive to reparative? You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
To restorative. And that to me is like the fundamental. Like I think we have the solutions. We know what we want.
Know what works.
The question is, how do we get there, and what do we build along the way?
Yeah, and do you have any suggestions on how, or are you just polling to come up with this?
So we're gonna film. So we're 3 episodes in, and we're gonna film a total of 12. We're gonna record a total of 12 episodes, and it's a mix of system actors, people directly impacted, survivor advocates. We're trying to have a really, young people, elders. We're trying to have a really broad stroke of conversations with folks. And my goal is by the end of that conversation is to have somewhat of a theory of transformation for how we should approach the criminal legal system.
Is that the barbershop talk?
No.
Okay.
That's old school. That was when I was at the state.
Okay.
But shout out to Donovan Bailey.
Is he still doing that?
I don't think so. I think he moved up here, so he was down in Rochester for a while. And
I think he had the governor on there.
Yeah. I helped him set that up.
Okay.
That was my job at the time, was to advise the governor, and so I went and did the show, and then I had him. I was like, "This governor should stop through there."
Okay.
That's it. That's his old congressional district, so
okay.
He knew all about it.
So, what is the medium? What would be the median in the conversation on how of transformation? What do you think? Like, what does the median look like? Like, something, maybe a consensus of conversation they think that needs to take place and for us to get to this other side to how?
I think so one is there's so much reckoning that needs to happen. And so I haven't answered this question by any means. I am on a process to engage people I trust and people who have expertise and experience, life experience, not just book experience, to help me answer this question. But what I've learned so far, just with a few interviews we've done, so we talked to Resma Menakem, the New York Times bestselling author of My Grandmother's Hands, and we talked to Keith Ellison, and then I've done an interview about my family history. So those are our first 3 episodes, and we have a bunch more lined up that I can't really talk about yet.
Yep.
But what I've learned in just these first 3 episodes is that there's a lot of reckoning to do, right? That we have to understand that the society we are, our systems were not built for the society we are today. Correct. I mean, think about it, we got billionaires taking trips into outer space just because they can. I mean, the founding fathers didn't anticipate that, right? Nor did they anticipate black people having equal rights, right?
Right.
And so I think one is just like, we don't have enough conversations with everyday people to help people recognize that. When you pause and ask like survivors, what do you want from the criminal justice system? Like, are you getting what you want? They don't say yes, right? Like, if you talk to brothers and sisters who have been locked down, like, did this system benefit you and help you? Yeah, the answer is no. Like, we have consistent failure across the board from the system, not from the good people in the system, but the system itself, right? And so I think number one is you got to reckon with that, right? You can't really start moving forward if you don't know where you're standing.
Right. You have no benchmark.
And then I think there's a set of values that you have to adopt. So one of the values that I think on how we move forward is being able to work with people you disagree with. You know? And I'm
absolutely.
I'm quick to be like, we clearly align on this and we disagree about everything else. So we're going to focus on this and try to expand that a little bit, right?
Open your mind.
That's the work, you know? So how do we move forward? The two things I got right now is you have to reckon, right, with where you're at and the harm that's been caused. And number two is you got to work with people. You got to be a bridge. And sometimes bridges get walked on. And so you can't be afraid to work with people who disagree with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's definitely something that I didn't think you were going to go there with it, but that's the truth. You definitely have to be open-minded and willing to have other listen to other people's information. Does anybody want to give a shout out to? Anybody want to?
Yeah, shout out to my two baby boys. Daddy loves you. I'll be home soon for bedtime. Shout out, so just to give people a heads up, we have the governor's budget's going to be coming out soon, so I would definitely look at what the state of Minnesota is planning to spend on public safety. Cedric Frazier, shout out to Representative Cedric Frazier, who put out a bill, $100 million going into public safety. I think shout out, really who I want to shout out is I want to shout out the folks at the Community Safety Specialist Program who are out in community on the north side doing the best they can, to all the different groups working to provide community safety. It is a crazy time in the hood right now. And there's about 40 folks who are responsible for all this mass, uptick in violent crime and whatnot. And that is a problem that we can solve.
Right.
And so I just shout out to everybody who's working to solve that. Don't nobody see you, but I see you, and make sure y'all see each other, support each other, and let's get through this very dark winter,
Yes, sir.
And like, subscribe, share, follow. I got something to say.
Yeah, for sure. You got it, man. You gonna
I don't get one of them, man. Y'all have the Spider-Man on.
3.
I got something to say.
So, welcome back. This is SAF Moe, your prison lawyer, with my man
Ron B in the middle.
This is the outro, man. I want to thank everybody. Thank everybody. Thank my family. Thank everybody for being supportive. Thank all the fans for looking out for us, supporting us. Check us out on all the different platforms. You know what I'm saying? Stick with us. Stay with us. We're going to keep bringing you the truth.
And I appreciate Justin Terrell coming to see us.
Yes, sir.
And talking to us.
Yeah, just tell you, he came and brother Carr situation was all messed up, but he still came. That brother a trooper. I respect that, man. He still came, and hopefully everything's working out with your car, bro. I appreciate you. It's all love, man. You know what I'm saying? No matter what they say, if they say you're Uncle Tom and all that, tell them to come see me, Joe. I'm correct anybody that's got anything that
straighten their ass out.
Yeah, this brother. Now, however you feel about him, he's doing work for the community, and he's trying to make this place a better place. And I appreciate you, bro. All love, bro.
He's trying to level the playing field.
And we're out.
Without the light. Without the light. something to say.
I got something.
No, I got something to say.
You want to hear me go? I got something to say.